Hey there. I would like to begin the episode by letting you know that you can support us by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That doesn't just support Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a way to support the entire network. It is a way for you to get exclusive content. So much of it every month. So much content, all of it. Oh, there's Greta. She agrees. My cat says, yes, it's a lot of content. Anyway, patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs Dispatch, our monthly Q&A and listener response and game announcement episode.
Yeah. This month, for August, we're going to be reading your response, or we're going to be reading your questions and answering your prompts. We are going to have a topic discussion, and then we're doing the game responses a little bit differently because we only had two games. We had Disco Elysium and Devil May Cry. And Disco Elysium is so recent and so spoiler and story sensitive. We're actually moving that to the end of the episode. Yeah. So we'll do like the episode, like the October game announcements and stuff like that before we cover Disco Elysium stuff. So everybody, if you do not feel comfortable being spoiled on Disco Elysium stuff, you can just, bounce out when we get there.
Yes. Yeah. Even though you should know Internal Affairs did it.
Internal Affairs was setting him up the whole time.
They were setting him up the whole time. So that's the one thing you got to know.
Yeah.
Going into Disco Elysium. Yeah. What a month.
Yeah. We had a lot of people write in about Disco Elysium, which is not a surprise, but people have thoughts.
Yeah. Excited.
Yeah. But also,
what a month. I did not read those before we do it. So, but I was just thinking about just what
generally
August,
in the world.
What an August it has been.
Yeah.
Boy, it's been a hell of an August.
Boy, it's been hell.
Yeah. Boy, it's been a hell. Boy. Ding, 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 ding.
That's a clean burning hell, I tell you what.
Yep.
That's a line. That's a line from King of the Hill. Yes.
It is a line from the Kings of the Hills.
Yeah.
Let's get into it with questions. We appreciate everybody coming out. Just as a real quick thing, if you want to ask us questions on this, you do so by being a patron. Patreon.com/DuckFeedTV. And listener responses go to Duckfeed.tv/contact. And anybody can do those. Yep. There are different spots. Like sometimes people put the game responses in the prompts. We recognize that it seems arbitrary, but the reason they're different is because one is a Patreon benefit and one isn't.
Yes.
I'll get to start here with Michelle Grimmer, who says, what are some of the ugliest games you still enjoy playing? I've been playing Hearthstone pretty regularly for about 5 years now, and hoo boy, Blizzard sure can crank out some lousy art.
Agreed. And what's weird is that was not always the case.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty much only with Warcraft 3 that they started slipping and sliding down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting rough stuff. I have two answers for this. One that I came up with before, and then one that just inspired because we recorded a thing before this. Early Tony Hawk games are ugly as sin.
Yep.
And still play great. But my prepared answer for this is Slay the Spire.
Ooh, yeah.
That game is hideous. I mean, that's really bad card art.
And that's borrowing heavily from a Hearthstone kind of style too.
I haven't played Hearthstone before. Like I definitely if so though, that does not say anything nice about Hearthstone.
Right.
Because Slay the Spire is only good in wireframe. But boy, every single card, every single design just looks like absolute shit.
Yeah.
So ugly game.
Yeah. This is a hard question to answer. The ugliest game that I have played recently that I still enjoyed was Mario Kart or Mario Golf Advance Tour.
Sure.
Which is ugly as sin. It was just incredibly awkward. Bad visual design all around. saved by a very, fun golf system. But yeah, like that I think is the answer that comes quickest to mind. Like there are definitely games that like have not aged very well, like a Tony Hawk, but I don't know that answer, is as interesting or what Michelle is looking for, as the Hearthstone or the Slay the Spire kind of answer.
Yeah, the things that are old, like the PS1 generation. We talked about that a lot. Like that's kind of an ugly generation.
Yeah.
In general, like there's pleasures to it. Like it's an aesthetic that you can dig, but there are a lot of really ugly shit in that.
Yeah. And it can be used to good effect too, horror games and things like that. But yeah.
Cue the meme about like, you're the best looking guy in here, Squall. And he just looks like dog shit.
I love that. So that's very funny to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt says or asks, with the exception of tabletop stuff, have you ever done any lore deep dives for games that you don't expect to play? Either getting lost in wiki dives, watching cutscenes, or lore videos on YouTube, etc. I do this with MMOs, actually.
Okay.
Like I will go back and just like do like look on TV tropes or go into like wiki like special wikis for either dead MMOs or like MMOs that I used to play. Specifically like EverQuest, which is still coming out with one expansion a year. And like reading about like the new content in that and looking at like what lore has been updated and stuff like that. Just kind of keeping tabs. There is cool story stuff that happens in games like that, but fuck if I'm ever going to play one again. So yeah, that ends up usually being the case for me.
No, for me, this was a thing when I was younger, mostly through video game magazines.
Yeah.
Like there are tons of, I knew a lot about the adventures of Willie Beamish for having never met the man. But nowadays it's all tabletop stuff. I don't really do it for video games. Like I keep up with Magic cards, even though I don't play even the online version.
Yeah.
I will read like TV tropes, for just kind of like, I probably read the Planescape and the Ravenloft and Dark Sun setting TV tropes things like many, many times.
Yeah.
But any video game stuff that comes through that is generally pretty incidental. Because if it's a game, I'm probably more interested in playing it. And if I'm not interested in playing it, I usually don't care to know about it. Caleb asks, what was the first video game you fell in love with? Additionally, what was your first video game related memory?
For me, Final Fantasy IV. Just because, that I've said that several times, like I played that exceptionally young. I was in like second grade or something like that. And like, ooh, games can be storybooks too. Cool. Because I was a nerd who liked reading chapter books when I was that young. And my first video game related memory, watching my brother play Mario 1 in our shared bedroom in the trailer that we lived in. Me sitting on the upper bunk, watching him play on the TV in our bedroom. I was playing with my socks had little plastic airplanes like attached to them, like on the elastic. And I was watching him play Mario and playing with the little airplanes that were like, stuck to my foot. Yeah.
No. The first video game I ever like super fell in love with was probably Mega Man 2. The first new Nintendo games I got were Operation Wolf, Mega Man 2, and also Mario Brothers, which came with it, which I also loved. But Mega Man 2 I was really obsessed with.
Yeah.
But my earliest memory was playing Atari, and it's either playing Joust with my family when I was like 6, or playing the E.T. Atari game. Those are the two I remember playing a lot on our Atari.
Yeah.
When I was a little boy. Who wanted to be a big boy?
Yeah. I think every little boy wants to be a big boy.
Yeah. Someday you'll fly those airplanes.
And they'll still be on your feet. We call them airplane shoes, and the year is 2022.
Yep. Like we invented them for some reason.
Yeah. Countless deaths. Countless deaths. Big lawsuit. Tragic. Tara writes,
in this pre-2022 environment.
Well, yeah.
Who can judge?
Yeah, who can guess? Tara asks, why do game designers love fishing mini games so much? And to make it more of a question, have you ever particularly enjoyed or hated a fishing minigame? Personally, I can't remember one that I've liked, but it always bugs me when they're mandatory to progress.
I used to like fishing games, and now I don't. In video games, and I think I liked them when I was younger, and I think the reason why they show up a lot is because they're nostalgic for people. I used to like them because I liked the games they were in.
Yes.
But I do think that they suck. And it's really annoying. It's very random. Like, the mechanics of them tend to be really limited, and then what you get tends to be like a gachapon machine, like in like Link's Awakening or in Nier, when you're just trying to get the big fish, and it's like, you might. I think that they're really horribly designed and shitty. But I think that I had nostalgia for them just because I liked the products that surrounded them. And the idea of going and doing a mini game for a little while was really novel. To me.
Yeah. I think that they're so common in games, specifically because I think fishing is bigger in Japan than here in America. I have nothing that I base that on aside from just things that I have seen in Japanese media. And, here in America, fishing is generally something that is, it's primarily a rural pursuit, like going and fishing, and stuff.
The rural elderly.
Yeah. Although fishing is fun. Like I grew up fishing. It's fine. It's nice spending time outdoors next to water. It's good. So that would be my guess, is that, just, we got a lot of games from Japan and they tended to like doing that. And as for like one of these that I really like the fishing mini game in Breath of Fire 3 is really good. Because that is, very often about like getting gear that will upgrade and like mastering reel patterns in order to attract the right fish. And when you pull stuff out, like it mostly ends up being like really powerful and effectively free items for your party that oftentimes are like will be better healing for your party than you can buy from a store. And also will give like buffs that you couldn't otherwise get. So there was like the systems were integrated in a good way. Yeah, Breath of Fire 3 has it really good. The least fun I've had doing a fishing mini game is Sonic Adventure, doing Big the Cat's campaign. Terrible.
Yeah. Well, Big the Cat is a war crime.
Yes.
Like, Big the Cat's got to go.
Yeah.
I remember liking the one in Deadly Premonition. All right.
It was like a slot machine kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a combination of two common mini games.
It's so weird. Like, it's just very, very weird that this has become such a gaming staple.
Yeah.
Thank you for drawing our attention to it, because I've never really questioned it. But it's pretty strange. I remember going fishing, and this was the kind of like little wuss kid I was, going fishing with my grandpa, and then refusing to go because I felt bad for worms.
Oh, yeah.
I could not handle the idea that like you would just, okay, we're going to eviscerate you, and then you're going to be trapped underwater as bait. Like I was like, this is one of the most evil things that you can do to another living creature. I can't fucking handle this.
Yeah.
That wasn't my words as a kid, but that was the grandpa, get fucked. I can't do this. Like that wasn't what happened, but that was my thought. I was just like, I feel too bad about this. And then my grandpa tried to take me out with the fake bait. And they don't work, so we didn't catch anything.
Right.
Because they just, at the time, the technology, like the fake bait was just rubber, like a piece of rubber, and we just kind of sat around.
Yeah.
So
no, we would go. Like my grandparents, they for a lot of the year they lived in a campground, like in an RV next to a big deck that they had built, and there were lakes there, and we would go, and fishing was a big part of that. I would go like to different ponds with my dad, fishing for bluegill and stuff like that. And a few times a year during the summer, we would go up to Lake Erie and fish from his boat up there.
Ooh.
The only eerie thing about Lake Erie is all of the mercury poisoning. But you bet your ass we pulled walleye out of that lake and we ate them with pride, and that probably accounts for some of my speech impediments today.
That's probably all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Any of your problems.
Yep.
How I love the idea of somebody being teleported to the earth and not knowing fishing was a thing. And you go into a gas station and there's just a fridge with like a scary horror font that just says night crawlers on it, and you don't know what that means.
Oh no.
Like you're used to like getting food from there, but this one's because it's always like sometimes they'll have like a piece of printer paper, like yellowed printer paper taped to it. But I've seen one where it just looks like a subliterate man wrote it with his left hand. Night crawlers across the fridge. It's like really scary. I love that. Live bait.
Do you want to buy something alive?
And do you want to buy a cup of writhing?
Would you like to purchase the writhing chalice?
Yeah. Would you like to partake of the writhing cup? It's very scary shit.
Oh God. No, suckers bought bait. We did buy bait, but a part of it was going out and digging for worms too. It was always fun to pull them out.
Well, you have to have the entire torture experience.
Yeah. Like yank them from their home.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, you have to do the entire torture cycle of the worm.
Oh, geez. Just talking about this mini game did bring something up for me. Apparently, I need to play this, but somebody made it's like an itch game, but it is
the Museum of Lockpicking.
The Museum of Lockpicking. There we go. Yeah. You already knew what I was going to talk about.
It was the guy who did Where the Water Tastes Like Wine.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I have that bookmarked. I haven't played it yet, but I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Looks neat. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I know this thing you would enjoy.
It's neat.
Yeah.
I like lockpicking.
Yeah.
Joel asks, I recently played Ghost of Tsushima while listening to your Disco Elysium episodes, which were great. Thank you. I was left underwhelmed and bored by Tsushima, aside from the visuals, and wish they had done more to make me feel invested in what I was actually doing. The setting was supposed to be the main part of what made that game interesting, but the world felt bland and generic in practice. What lesson do you think modern open world games could learn from games like Disco Elysium to make things a bit more interesting from a story and world building perspective? It might be an apples and oranges situation, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. Could Elden Ring, for example, learn any lessons from Disco Elysium?
Yeah, definitely. There are different types of stories, right? Not every story can be what Disco Elysium is, trying to do. But I think that something that is broadly important about any kind of setting is that it needs to be reflected in the people who live in it, either in the way that they live as a result of kind of like what that, what that landmass values, be that its government or economy. Or through legendary figures, and this is I'm thinking just about Dark Souls here. Legendary figures, it can be being communicated to you what they want and what they ultimately got, whether they failed, succeeded, or succeeded to the point where it ultimately looked like failure, and that needs to be reflected in
victory.
and that needs to be reflected. I think in the space around you as well. I think that people, whether big or small, need to be centered in order for a setting to be good. It can't just be like biographical facts about what happened on this land.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also, I think a little bit more than that. I think what a lot of my favorite fiction does is fiction in both like books and movies and games and everything is add a sense of something surreal to underline the real of something. So like if you look at and this is just an easy example, I'm not trying to be film man, but like you look at like Charlie Kaufman movies or whatever. They take something, they add an element of the fantastical to like reflect on the real world and the humanity within. And I think that a one-to-one historical setting has a harder time doing that. I think that you can get a lot of that characterization and put your characters in situations where they're going to show more humanity and more character by tweaking those things. Which is something I think that Disco Elysium does really well. Like a largely real world setting that has everything at a canted angle and surreal enough to show the emotional truth behind things a little bit stronger than the literal truth.
Even if it stops short of being outright magical realism, I think that what that can do as part of the setting is kind of bring forward a central metaphor of what you're trying to talk about. When you have that element of the surreal or whatever, usually that exists to exert some kind of pressure to kind of like enable the kind of story that you want to tell or what kind of value you're trying to get across.
Yeah. What way better than like, I'm going to say something I don't expect you to agree with me or anyone like necessarily listening to agree with me. But the other thing that I think that, that setting is going to have over Ghost of Tsushima automatically is it's not based on a real world setting. I feel like people like, there's a lot of like, oh man, give me the game that takes place here. And what I actually want is a game that takes place in a place that's inspired by that.
Yeah.
But isn't just that. Like people can tell me until like they're blue in the face that like the Sengoku period of Japan was really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to want Sekiro before I'm going to want Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes.
Like I'm going to want something kind of based in it that has these fantastical elements way more than I'm ever going to want direct history in a video game, because it's just going to make it like history is very complicated to get those big, larger than life characters in those broad swaths. Sometimes that takes dozens and dozens of years to go through. And a game doesn't take place over that amount of time. Like a game is a single incident. You have to kind of like compress time.
Yeah.
And fiction, surrealistic elements or non-realistic elements can do that work for you. Whereas just having like, you can be like, oh, this time, like history really came alive. This was such a fascinating setting. But if that's it, if you're just doing stuff in that setting and the setting is as it is, like, I think it's harder to get to those, kind of bigger feelings and bigger themes in the amount of time allotted.
Yeah. Fortunately, I think that like outside of, say, Ghost of Tsushima, maybe a couple of smattering of other examples, or like established properties like Romance of the Three Kingdoms or what have you, or any of those kind of like grand strategy games where you are kind of like acting as a whole country. I think straight up history is fortunately pretty rare. Thinking about like even games that approach like a historical fiction, Assassin's Creed being a major one, like what those do is they take recognizable architecture and put you into a setting that really heightens the feel of what it would be like to get around in these places. But like all of the story and stuff is this pulp conspiracy kind of stuff. Like you are working with larger than life figures who are struggling against each other. And kind of being used as a tool in their broader scheme. And that's why I think that works for me personally. Yeah.
The secret ingredient is like drama and conflict.
Yeah.
And incident.
Yep.
It's not that, and I can't.
And we're just activity cucks. Yeah.
Yeah, we're activity cucks. I can't speak to Ghost of Tsushima generally, but one of the reasons why that game looked so boring to me initially was just like I just don't care about being a samurai and walking around doing samurai shit and that. Like, the thing that made, I had a lot of problems with Sekiro, but the story grew on me as we covered it. And one of the things I liked about it wasn't just, the daimyo's in trouble.
Yeah.
Like it had a lot kind of bigger shit going on.
Yeah.
That pushed those forces and exaggerated it to make it work in the time scale. So
yeah, and it could be the case. I've got no idea. I've not played Ghost of Tsushima. I've just never seen people talk about what goes on in that, aside from the different kind of fiefdoms in Japan, specifically that area, need to gather together to fight off the invasion of the Mongols, right?
Yeah,
like I've not seen anything described where they have kind of that heightening.
There's also a failure
there's a failure in the way that people broadly talk about games, where by avoiding spoiling stuff, especially in public, they end up talking about the most superficial things. That is not any one person's problem. That's just a general problem, the way we talk about games.
I think that's true, but I also think that with that game specifically, I'm not convinced there's stuff there.
Yeah.
Like when I read writing that is full spoilers about that game, they're not talking about that stuff. They're talking about how pretty it is.
Yeah.
Because it's got a trick. So that game is going to get forgotten so quickly. Like in 2 months, no one will even know the name of that game.
Yep.
Like that's on the Order 1886 train out of town.
It's one of those weird games. Like it exists as a first party exclusive, at the very, very extreme tail end of a console cycle.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Zane writes, are there games that you feel focused on the wrong thing or had the wrong scope or scale? Like the main character's journey wasn't as interesting as others, or the game ended just as the plot was starting to develop in an interesting direction, or that the story was too granular or too grand and the experience was worse for it?
Yeah. Sure. Like the classic example of the main character sucking is Final Fantasy 12, which I thought when I played it then, I haven't revisited, but like, you know, doing the point of view characters who are blank slates was, I think, a big mistake in that game. I think like in terms of like focusing on the wrong scope, like a lot of games that I think are good, but I don't actually, or like interesting, but I don't actually like playing, have that problem. Like I wish that Deadly Premonition was just the cool parts of Deadly Premonition.
Yeah.
And none of the uncool parts of it. You know?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Like I looked at this, you know, I watched these responses as they came in. I saw this and it stuck out as a pretty tricky one. I have not thought of a good answer. I think that generally what I prefer is for games to be smaller, you know, and go back and listen to several other shows that we've talked about.
The entire network.
Yeah,
listen to a decade of podcasting.
Yes. Listen to a decade of podcasting.
Just go back real quick. We'll wait.
Yeah. We'll be here. We'll be here in several hundred hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, this happens with almost every JRPG. Like, Suikoden 2 1000% should have stopped before the cosmic space threat showed up. If that was just about Look Up Light, that would have been a much better game, I think.
I can't recall anything after Look Up Light, Gary.
It's because it's unmemorable and shitty. It like gets generic, and that's a good game and a good example of that genre. Like I like Suikoden 2, but just like scope. You know, or Final Fantasy 9 should never have had whatever pops up after Kuja.
Yeah.
You know, all that stuff. Like, there's a million examples of this in that genre because they always have to go cosmic. And so rarely is it necessary or good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. I can't think of a counterexample where I wish something would have gotten bigger.
No, yeah. It's something where the scope is too small. Is like, that doesn't feel like an animal that exists to me.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be cool if they did, but no.
Yeah.
Greg asks, and just as a note, we did edit this down a little bit, not to be, you know, just for time. A lot of current parents who are introducing their kids to video games grew up playing video games themselves. It's always a struggle for myself growing up because my parents just did not get the whole thing about video games and why I enjoyed the hobby so much. Something that still hasn't changed with them, though, now that I'm in my 40s. Do you have any memories or experiences of playing video games with your parents or siblings? And did they get video games or just tolerate them?
Yeah.
No. Your first memory.
Yeah, I had my first memory watching my brother play. Generally, as we grew up, we tended to favor different things. Like he was really into sports games, you know, and never really wanted to play like 2-player Sonic the Hedgehog or whatever with me. But there were games that we would, you know, watch each other play with, you know, Super Mario World, Star Fox, stuff like that. Most of my like fun family memories are playing with my dad. You know, like just speaking of Star Fox, just the amazing memory of like my dad getting us the Super Nintendo and like us spending the night, like spending a weekend at my cousin's house playing it in the basement. Right. You know, just spending a bunch of time playing Zombies Ate My Neighbors with my dad. Like I've got a copy of Zombies Ate My Neighbors up on my memory shelf because I like that game a lot because I had very good memories of playing that. You know, with my dad, my brother, my uncle, just kind of like passing it back and forth. Yeah. You know, to the point where he still has the SNES like plugged in the basement in his house. Yeah. That's a great memory for me.
Yeah. No.
No?
No. Not really. I played Atari with my parents before they got divorced, and then no. Then my mom tolerated video games, never really liked them. I have a very distinct memory of me getting, like, I never got bad grades, but if something I was not interested in, every once in a while I'd pull like a B or a C. Like I'm generally like a B average kid. But I got a C, and her coming in and yelling at me and pointing to like a textbook and being like, that's important. And then pointing to my keyboard. I was teaching myself how to play keyboard. Like, that's important. And then pointing to my PlayStation and be like, that's not important. Like, you know, but then like we basically hands off. After that. Like, it was just, you know,
just comes in, like, sets the priority and expects you to act on it.
Yeah. Then didn't enforce it because she was a single mom,
right? Like, you
know, working 50 hours a week or whatever to support me.
Yeah.
So, but it was definitely something that she did not appreciate or get or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, which is fine. Like I turned out to be a professional video game player in spite of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. What does Stuart say? I think this is a really good question.
Yeah. Stuart writes, I was thinking lately about the blind spots in my gaming history. Are there landmark titles or entire games you feel that you know little or nothing about? Do you feel like it's important for WAF that you tried to fill in those gaps?
Yes, and yes, kinda.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah, there's definitely things that I don't have any history with. I like the idea of doing them for WAF at some point. Like we'll use that, cite that as like a reason
Yeah.
that we've done a game before, just to kind of hit a series. So I guess like yes and yes.
Yes and yes, for sure. And over the course of, the decade that we've been doing this, or coming up on a decade, like I have filled in substantial gaps. Like a big one is, like, I'd only ever really just kind of like grazed on the point and click adventure, not point and click adventure games. I've played a shitload of those. I'd only ever really grazed on computer RPGs, Fallout and, Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. Like, I never really had an impetus to get through them, even though I knew there was good stuff in there. But yeah, sitting down and playing for them for the show has filled in a huge black hole for me.
Yeah. There's also, for me, like related to the topic when we get to this, like there's a lot of stuff that came out during a gaming downtime.
Yes.
For me that I missed, and the show is good for that. So like I played my first Halo game for the show. Like eventually I will play my first Gears of War game for the show. Maybe someday we'll do an Assassin's Creed. Like I played the first one, but I never beat it. Maybe we'll actually do one of those.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of kind of that period of things that I just totally missed.
Yeah.
And it would be, and like there's also things that I played a little bit of, but it was fun to actually go through and pay serious attention to. So like we did Commander Keen.
Yeah.
Like we did like a PC platformer.
Yeah.
And I can imagine us doing like Jazz Jackrabbit or something like that in the future. Like that's a real weird subgenre that is important to some people that does not get very much attention.
Yeah.
So I do think it is cool. Like I love experimental WAFs. Like I love doing things that challenge the format and that are weird games that I don't hear people talk about.
Yeah.
In a substantive way. Like Plants vs. Zombies.
Yeah. No, that's coming up. And boy, is that game incredibly good, and there's a lot that other people should like take from that.
Yeah, it's super good.
Yeah. You never really played like any Silent Hill games before we did the show.
No, yeah. I had played the first one a little bit with Derek. In that way that like two people would play a single player game back in the day. Yeah. Like we kind of passed the controller, but mostly I'd watch him, but I never got to the end of it. Silent Hill 2 was the first time I'd played that, and that game's great.
Yep.
And it's weird because I'd played Resident Evil. I just didn't, in my mind, I didn't have the like putting that together.
Yeah.
Gene, where it's like, oh, I might like this because I like that. Wasn't really what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Isaac asks, how important is music to you in a game? Have you ever played through a game you didn't particularly enjoy just to hear the soundtrack? Conversely, have you ever stopped playing a game that you did enjoy because the music is terrible?
Music can always be turned off. If it can't, that is a problem. Put that in your options.
If it can't, you're like, well, you can also always just turn off the music. Whatever you're playing on. If it can't, you have a problem. Like if you can't, you're in like Guantanamo or something.
Right.
Like, so no and no. Like I've never kept playing a game for the music because I can also not only can always be turned off, but I can also just pop onto YouTube if I want to hear the soundtrack without playing a game.
Yeah.
There are plenty of games I like the soundtrack to, but I don't want to play.
Yeah. Night in the Woods.
Yeah, Night in the Woods. I don't want to play again, but I love the soundtrack. I like the soundtrack to Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
I don't want to play that though, but I like the soundtrack. And in terms of importance, like it is pretty important, even though like I feel like it's possible that it's less important to me now just because multitasking of some degree has become more frequent for me, not just in terms of like podcast games, but even just in terms of like focus.
Yeah.
Like it's not that there's no focus, but there's maybe a little less focus. So music does a lot. It, changes the mood. It establishes a lot of things, but it's something that I definitely pay a little bit less attention to.
Yeah.
Like notice it when it's good and listen to it on its own. But in terms of the act of playing, it's a little bit more diverse.
Yeah. It's weird because it is additive and it is good when it is there. I feel like it is more linked to moments and heightens moments, or, particular moods in particular areas, as opposed to kind of being something that is necessary for the entire game.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Agreed. Do you want to move us on to life questions?
Yes. So on to asks, I have been thinking of getting a cat. It'll be my first pet as I grew up without having pets ever. Can I ask you two about your formative experiences with having a pet? And what advice would you give to a first-time cat owner?
I've raised several cats. Now this is my cat number 4. I think that you have a pretty limited degree of control over what your cat will be like, based through like nature. Yeah. I think a lot of it is nurture. With a cat, like you might get a cat that has a certain temperament, but you do have a degree of control over that. Not total control like a dog, but you have a degree of control over it. So like if I was choosing a cat, I would choose one that I liked, that had the temperament you want, and then just try to keep enforcing that. Yeah. As much as possible. But you can have a cat that seems really sweet and then turns out to be a nightmare, and vice versa. Yeah. And I think that is largely because cats live in a weird sensory world that we don't live in. Like they're smelling and sensing things that we can't see. And that can affect them. Yes. Quite obviously. So like, we had, the cat known as Poet, rest in peace, Poet, my old cat who died, who was very, very sweet as a baby and then became kind of cranky and eventually got sweet again, but just had a pretty long crank period. And we didn't do anything shitty to Poet. Right. Like we were good cat owners to Poet. I think it was just smells and anxiety, and like they have like all the same shit that we can have. They are individuals. Like people tend to think of cats as like plants, like they're all the same, but they're really not. No. And you can, they are unique. So there is an element of like pulling a slot machine, and there's an element of work to getting the temperament you want with a cat too. Yeah. I really lucked out with Greta. Prior to her, I really never had pets. Like we had a dog for like what must have been 2 weeks when I was very little, but it didn't work out in the house because nobody wanted to walk it, which is a problem when you have a dog. I was 4, I think. Its name was Rambo. Time for a walk. Like after that, I lived in a house with a very nice black cat named Miles, with a roommate. It was a roommate's cat, but cat spent a lot of time in my room, which was fun. That kind of got me used to them. And I never really was in a living situation where I could have one until I got my own house here. I'm going to be adopting a new cat here, a new kitten that was born on my stepsister's farm. I might go out and visit later today, depending on how much daylight is left after we go. But yeah, I think that it is, the only thing that you have control over is the environment that you create for the cat and your reactions to the way that it behaves. That's really it. As far as like advice goes, you probably like need fewer things than like if you go online and look at like a list of things you want to like buy for it. But what I would say is like, there are some things where I found myself thinking like, oh, I can probably like do fine with just like the $5 litter tray. And then I would bring it home, and then Greta would just kick a bunch of, like litter out of it. And I realized, oh yeah, the reason the expensive ones have the high sides is because cats kick litter. Okay. And then I went and I got the nice $25 one, Well, it totally, the other thing though, is that totally depends on the cat. Yeah. Like even down to the litter, right? Like, a cat will just decide not to use a litter. Yeah. And like I've had like, Roars was pickier about his litter than Pocket is, like you kind of have to get to know the animal. Yeah. So like even in terms of kicking, like when we had the 3 cats, we had 2 cats that would do that and 1 cat that would not really do it. So we adjusted for the cats who would do it, but it's really just kind of depends. Yeah. There's like all these kind of weird instincts at play things like that are going on. It sounds like we're reverse selling it. It's the best decision you can make in your life.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. You should 1000% do it. It's hard to give generalized advice.
Yeah.
Because they are individuals, even though people will try to tell you that they're not, they're lying to you.
No. People who tell you that every cat is the same, obviously they've not been around.
They don't pay attention.
Animals. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you have if your like care gene is not just like a blunt instrument, you can tell the difference between that's a failure of observation.
Yeah.
If you think that, like,
even just like different energy levels,
Yeah. Be more sensitive. Care more about the living things around you.
Yeah. But also like get ready to either vacuum or dust more than you may have done before, because you'll have a creature around that is shedding way more hair than you do. And just if you want to, you'll want to stay on top of it more than anything. And also, I don't know if you have one of these, Gary, but like a litter genie is amazing. It's like,
I do not have a litter genie.
Okay.
I have a litter gin. It was cheaper. I don't have a litter gin either.
Oh, okay.
Is that one of the magical litter boxes? Is that a self-cleaning?
No. It's like a $15 thing. It's like literally just called like a litter genie. I think it's made by the people who make the diaper genie, which is a machine that will you just take dirty diapers and put it into it.
Horrible summon.
No, but it's like, as opposed to like taking a plastic bag every time you scoop the litter box, like what the litter genie is, it's like a smaller little box that you scoop the poops into. And then you pull a little like lever, and it drops the poops into a sealed plastic bag so that the smell doesn't get
gotcha.
out. Yeah.
Gotcha. I had friends who had one of those. The litter I use, and I hate liking a product. People frequently come over to my house and not know that I have a cat. I have basically eliminated cat odor from my house. I know that's the kind of thing insane people say because they're really used to the smell of cat piss.
Yeah.
But like people will visit and be like, yeah, I can't smell anything. Like Derek came over and was looking at the cat litter and was like, I see the turds. I don't smell the turds.
Yeah.
So just a little buzz marketing. If they want to send me a bunch of free shit, Pretty Litter, cat litter, is exceedingly good.
Yeah. You got me on the Pretty Litter train. Yeah. You and Nick did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It doesn't, it's small. So in terms of tracking, it's a little bit worse.
Yeah.
But I went from like frequently smelling pocket shit to never smelling pocket shit. And it's improved our relationship tenfold. Like, imagine if you could do that with your grandpa, or your dad or something, you didn't have to like, take a shower in his leftovers. Like,
Yuck, man.
It happens, dude.
Yeah, but no, just this is a slightly older question. This is a holdover. I don't know what you decided to do, but owning a cat, inviting an animal friend into my life is one of the best decisions I ever made. So
yeah, pro move as a human.
Yep.
Like, we'll make you more human. We'll make you.
Yeah.
It's good.
Next question.
You.
This will be you.
Sam asks, as somebody who moved to another state, I've actually been socializing with more old friends since the quarantine. Mostly it's been Facebook or Zoom chats with the friends and family reaching out, and online D&D games with friends across the country. I'm curious if y'all have noticed this as well.
My socializing has changed zero since quarantine, which on one...
Non-applicable. I'm teasing.
Yeah. That is a thing that really should concern me, actually. But no, it has not been a thing that has really affected me. So I will bow out of this one.
It has affected me a lot, but I have not been hanging out with my old friends. I've checked in on my old friends just because it's like it's hell times.
Yeah.
I hate, for somebody who talks on Skype for a living, or VoIP for a living, I hate Zoom socializing. Like, I thought I'd be okay with it, and I'm really not. I've done that to catch up with some friends, and it just always feels awkward, and I don't know what to do with my hands, and I really don't like it. We do game night over Discord, and it's okay. Like, I've had fun doing that, but it's not even close to the same, and I don't like it very much.
Yeah.
So
a thing that is not accounted for in Zoom conversations that I think is I know for me, it is something that feels necessary. Is oftentimes when I am like catching up with somebody, like personally, we're not sitting there looking directly at each other. Like we are both looking at a third thing.
Yeah.
Either like we're decidedly like looking at the TV, or we're looking at a fire. If we're outside,
you're ordering from a restaurant.
Yeah,
a concert's about to start. Like the idea, you're walking through a store. Like the idea of conversation being aided by constant stimulus is real.
Yes,
like extremely real. Some of my favorite like social memories are walking through like a store or a convention or something with somebody, and you have like a nonstop stream of shit to like goof on or prompts.
Like park benches.
Really
how amazing are park benches, Gary?
Yeah, you can watch people. You can like it's so good. Like having a steady stream of that stuff is really important.
Yeah,
that's a really good point, Cole. Like I hadn't really thought about that, but that's a huge thing that's missing. Huge.
Yeah. So and like it's not that I am like especially uncomfortable looking people in the face. That's fine. I just don't think like in natural conversation we do that very much.
Yeah.
So like that's part of why it's really off-putting for me. Like it feels way too locked in and focused and like intrusive to me.
It very much so. It's like this like just direct like mind meld.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and it's weird. Even when I'm like hanging out with Emma, like we'll like lounge around, even when we're not watching anything. We're not like just staring in each other's eyes, like in a Zoom. It's also you're not staring in the eyes; you're staring in the camera.
Yep. Yeah.
So to them, you're looking a little bit up, at least with the way my camera is.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. I've done it a few times just to keep in touch with people who I really want to keep in touch with, but I can't say that I've ever like I come off the call and I'm like, it was nice to like talk to them and make sure they're doing okay. But I really just want this to end so I can go back to hanging out.
Yes.
Which I'm not, that is not an invitation for everyone to tell me how naive and how long that will be.
No, we understand, normal is not going to happen. So
I get it, but it's also what I want.
Yes. it's fine to mourn something that is gone. Like you can want it. Yeah.
You need to be the mourn police.
Yes. Yeah. And it's probably worth noting when we do these shows, we don't have any video on. I don't know that I could do it if that was the case.
Yeah. We do game night. We started doing it with the video because it was too hard to keep the rhythm up with that many people. I think the fact that we can do these without that is because and I do all the shows without video. Like I don't record a video with Jeremy or Will either. And I think it's because it's just the two of us. If we had like a panel, it would be a lot more difficult.
Yes. Yeah. I've been doing the level remotely with those same people for so long that it's not really a problem, Yeah. Yep. Let's see here. Marcus asks, what is the best part of working remotely? Do you have any advice for people like many teachers, etc., having to do it full time? First off, I do not envy teachers who need to make that switch. I can't imagine trying to control 20, 30 incomplete humans from a distance like that. That seems like a nightmare, especially if my training was not in doing that.
I envy them slightly more than the ones that are just being told to go back to school with no changes or anything.
Yes, that is,
They
goes
might
without
live.
saying. They're not being sent into the line of fire.
Yeah, it's possible they'll survive, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's got to be rough stuff. I feel like you might have more for this because I came to this real naturally. Working from home, working remotely was really easy for me, and all the best things are just like, Yahtzee, I get to wear my underwear. But some people, it is more of a transition.
Yeah. So for me, like my first big boy job that I ever got, we didn't have an office when I started working for the agency that I worked for. So there was a work from home component built into it. So there really wasn't that much of a transition for me either. So like I had these skills kind of built in from those, 6 months where I was doing that job, specifically where there were clients and, other people on the creative team who depended on my output. You know, like that was a-okay. And I developed like the compensatory muscles to, you know, to figure out a way to stop working. And what that took was having panic attacks and getting on medication. And,
Sure.
you know, realizing that like, oh, you can't always be working. Like you need to have a way to, a way to cut it off. And that involved like negotiating expectations with the people that I was working with. I think that one of the things that you're going to run into as a point of friction, if you are freshly moving to a work from home, is that there are more negotiations and there are different assumptions about the ways that people will spend their time, and the ways that people will work and when they will work. And I think that you need to understand what is going to be best for you and be assertive about that while being flexible enough to, you know, work for the team. But like, yeah, you know, if you find yourself that you are constantly working on your like supervisor's schedule and that is untenable for you, that is not going to be a good long-term arrangement.
Yeah. And that goes for working in person too.
Yeah.
Right. It's just kind of remotely. I think that the shift to working remotely that happened with the pandemic has really underlined how, you know, and this, I'm not the first person to make this point. A lot of jobs can be done remotely, and a lot of the things that we consider as part of givens for office work are pretty arbitrary.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, including things like, you know, keeping the exact same schedule. Like that makes sense when you're doing synchronous work. But when you're doing asynchronous work, like in general, it is okay to like, you know, I think that those things have been relaxed a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little easier to draw those boundaries and say like, hey, like I am not somebody who does all of my best work in the afternoon. You know, I want to get all my stuff done in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, it just like when I work best. Like in general, you know, if the American work ethic like was taken out behind a shed and shot and everyone was allowed to do that, productivity in this country would go up so high. I think about how many just man hours I wasted working in office and were just garbage because I got up too early and, you know, was working between the hours of 8 and like 11.
Yeah.
You know,
the classic, the classic, this could have been an email meeting. You know, that was the majority of my meetings that were
almost
not like
every meeting
that, you know, that like the majority of those meetings that was not like actively working with other people to like come up with something creative, right? Like story plan meetings needed to happen. Like that was a place where being in the same room and bouncing ideas off of each other very quickly was necessary. But like administrative stuff, that it never needed to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. So hopefully, you know, that's something that good can come out of this and can be something people can take forward.
Yeah. People that I have talked to as well who have made the shift or made the transition also find that they are getting the same amount of work done in much, much less time.
Yeah.
You know, and just you know, I've had to like talk to them. Like this has been the case with my brother. You know, who made a pretty big shift. He works for a government agency, government office, and he was feeling like conflicted about it. And it's like, stop thinking about being paid. Stop thinking about it as you being paid for the hours that you work. Think about it as being paid for your output. Separate those two things because that's literally what it is.
And that's what it always should have been from the start. Like, and we don't need to go into a whole thing about how Americans' attitudes towards work is diseased and wretched, but it is diseased and wretched. You know, and I work harder and better and am more satisfied doing this than any other job I ever had in my life. And obviously part of it is because it's more interesting, but the other part of it is that direct result of being paid for my efforts as opposed to just filling out a punch card and putting in the, you know, being a warm body in a spot. I never feel that alienation from my work now. And that is such a deeply dehumanizing part. That is just something that most people are just expected to just take for granted. Yeah. Like, it actually doesn't matter. You work harder, nothing better happens. You work less, nothing worse happens. You just have to be there. That is such a horrible status quo. Yeah,
it's really alienating is the word that I would use for it. Yeah,
Kafka-esque.
Yeah.
No, it is Kafka-esque. Yeah. This is me.
Yes.
Another Mark. Mark asks, knowing your fondness for Halloween, all things spooky, do either of you have any favorite local legends, haunts, or scary stories? Even if they turn out to be pretty mundane in real life, visiting spots like that is a fun weekend trip for my wife and I whenever autumn rolls around. For instance, a few years back, we took some friends to Centralia, PA, which is supposedly the basis for the town in the Silent Hill 2006 film, complete with an underground coal mine fire that's been burning since 1962.
Yeah, just gonna swing by Centralia, look at the abandoned houses, breathe a bunch of very poison air.
Yeah.
It would be cool to visit Centralia. I was unaware that you could get there. I thought that it was cut off.
I thought it was cut off too. Maybe you can just see it from a distance.
Maybe.
What you can do for a shockingly affordable price is tour Chernobyl, which I have priced out many a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I really want to do before I die, and possibly right before I die.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go well.
Yeah. Anything local spookies that you do in either Portland or in Oregon?
No. I mean, like I went and did the Shanghai tunnels, which were spooky and cool, and there's like haunted, rumors about that. And then in my hometown, there were a couple abandoned properties that were spooky, but there was never any like cool legend around them because we weren't imaginative enough.
Yeah,
as kids.
No. The biggest one is one that I've talked about for a long time, but here in Ohio, here in Mansfield, North Central Ohio, the Ohio State Reformatory, obviously, the filming site for Shawshank Redemption and a couple of other movies. My family works there. Like they worked there long before I grew up, like back to my grandparents. And now my little sister works there as like a media producer for their, internal production and promotion team. So like it is absolutely like 5 generations of my family have worked in this big, spooky Gothic castle looking prison that throughout my life has gone through like varying phases of repair and disrepair. I love spending time there because it is a spooky enough building, because actual horrible things have happened there. I don't believe in hauntings at all, but I do believe that, existing in a place where terrible things happened does put you into a different state of mind, let's say. I love that building, and it's really weird to square that away with how much I hate prison in general, but my favorite building is a prison.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Like a spooky old prison doesn't mean so. Like I love asylums, but I don't necessarily like the way those are treated. I just think they're cool.
Yeah. Oh gosh, for a college course, it was like madness in literature or something like that. It was like an honors course that was like a co-taught between the literature department and the psychology department. For that, there was basically an abandoned psych ward on campus that was completely like walled off, like blocked off. It was like part of the hospital that was part of the campus. We got to go and tour that. And that was really cool. Just like walking into the bowels of this building that like the janitors just kind of stopped paying attention to. Was real fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was a good opportunity. Again, to see a place where very awful things happened.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Yeah.
Look me up. Move on to media questions here. What does Brad say?
Brad says, what music are you guys listening to lately? Feel free to ignore this if there's a better venue, but since there isn't a try this type show right now, I'm curious. Quarantine and constant work from home has found me revisiting a lot of music that I haven't listened to since 10 plus years ago. Same, actually. I've found myself like going back and like just like watching live YouTube performances, sometimes like very bad like fan cam performances of bands that I like that I'm nostalgic for. You know, like sometimes like going back to like the 90s, like, oh, this is an Eel set from 1997. Cool. I'm going to watch this because it makes me feel good.
Yeah. The quarantine turning everybody into this like self-eating snake kind of thing in terms of pop culture. I've been really happy to hear how universal that's been because like, it's been a lot of reading comics and Shadowrun source books and listening to old music and watching The Simpsons and Seinfeld and stuff, like a lot of retreating into the past.
Yeah. I'm locked in my house. I'm locked around all of my things, which are a marker of that past.
Yeah. I mean, you have the internet as well, which is a marker of everything. But
right.
Who has the energy to get into a new band now?
Oh,
that's amazing to me that people can do it. the closest I've done is this is the year I finally have gone deep on Moonface, Spencer Krug's solo project. I get into like one Spencer Krug project a year. It feels like, and that's this year. And it's great.
And you'll never catch up because he does 2-3 new projects a year. So
he doesn't actually. He doesn't do his. You're thinking of Guided by Voices. They put out like 6 albums a year and multiple.
I'm just making an observation about how prolific he is. Yeah.
He does. It's a real pro Patreon. He writes like a song a month.
Oh wow!
And they're just kind of like demoed, so they're not like fully produced usually, but they're all really good. He's in a really good spot songwriting wise.
Nice.
And he's going to start doing live concerts once a month on the Patreon. So it is a good Patreon.
Oh, I had no idea.
But yeah, it's that's been basically the new shit I've gotten into, which is not new whatsoever.
Nope.
I've been listening to a lot of old stuff.
Lots of live Shearwater sets because that's who I am, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise.
Yeah, especially not now. Who has the energy to pretend? Kale asks, this is a question about shows. I've got a normal question, then a stupid hypothetical. First, if you wouldn't mind, I'm curious what your weekly schedules look like. You guys put out a lot of content, much of which requires consuming a not insignificant amount of media, then adding recording and editing on top of it. It seems like you'd almost never have any free times to play games for fun or socialize. Yes. It does seem like that. The stupid hypothetical. Would you rather be forced to quit podcasting for good or be forced to do an in-depth bonfireside chat style show about the Kingdom Hearts franchise?
I mean, if I was forced to do it, I would do it my way and find a way to make it fun. I don't know that I want to give up my livelihood and also a thing that I really enjoy doing just because of a mandatory thing. Like, I would do the Kingdom Hearts show and fucking roast it.
Yeah, nobody would have fun.
No,
but in this scenario, like a genie is making us do it or something. So like we'd satisfy the terms of the geese. It would take up a lot of time. I don't think we could do that on top of everything because those games are long and horrendous, and it would take up a lot of mental bandwidth.
Yeah, it would sap some measure of our soul.
Yeah, but I would still do that rather than like go work at a Target.
Yeah, fuck that.
So yeah, it would suck though. And again, I can't emphasize to you how not fun it would be. Like everybody liked that Waypoint thing where they kind of made fun of it. That was because
also,
they find it at least a little
like
bemusing.
Yeah.
They actually like it a little bit. They're open-minded. I'm not open-minded about it. There's no, I would have no fun. I would just be disgusted by the fact that it exists and that people like it.
Yes.
For the entire time. It'd be like a 2 minutes hate.
Except it would be many, many more hours.
Yeah, it'd be way more than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And way more frequently than the 2 minutes hate. It would be like a reverse spa.
Yeah.
For me and everyone listening to it. Just like a real gross foul purging.
The only thing that might be a little bit fun is like going back and like doing an episode about like Tron. I know we've already done that, but like, it's not that there are no good properties that are reflected in that. It's just that there
are a lot of good properties.
Yeah.
We could do an episode about Final Fantasy,
right.
There are things like, like, you remember that series used to have anything to do with Final Fantasy? Like, there's a lot of things we could do with it like that, but we'd have to like talk about Organization 13 and how there are 14 members in it and like all this shit.
Yeah.
When I heard that was a real shocking moment.
It's like how the Big Ten has 11 teams in it. Yeah. Or 12
now,
I
really
think.
Don't like that. Like, oh, we tricked you. We tricked you the same way the Ben Folds 5 tricked me. Like, extremely clever.
Yeah. Or five for fighting. Yeah. It's just you. It's the one guy.
Yeah, man, it's not that clever. Like that's not, it's not hilarious either. It's not like, oh, I love it. It's so dumb. No, it's just so dumb.
Yeah. For the other question, I mean, I think that I record 3-4 days a week, something like that. Oftentimes in the afternoon, like with the level we record late in the evening. Mornings are usually when I do play and things like that. Editing happens on the off days when I'm not recording. And yeah, I pretty much do it, if I'm playing for a show, I, do it even outside of like scheduled hours. There's no like fixed schedule for anything that I do aside from agreed upon times that we record.
Yeah, same. Typically I record with Cole every Monday, Thursday, most Tuesdays. Wednesday tends to be a day that I record with Jeremy. Wednesday or Friday, whichever one of those I don't record with Jeremy, is like an overflow day.
Yeah.
Where I do editing or I hammer in some play that I haven't been doing.
Yeah.
And then I try to keep weekends free, but oftentimes end up playing games.
Yeah.
For the show during weekends.
Yeah.
So.
Like I'm looking back at a calendar of my play that I've done, just completed tasks on my busy cal here. And a lot of the play ends up happening like on Wednesdays, a lot of it on weekends, Tuesdays, stuff like that. Yeah, it's been interesting to kind of see that, like, as I cross off, like, oh, I finished this little area, like, looking at this, this past weekend, I finished Augur of Darkness. So I've got like all of those areas marked off here. Yeah. But yeah, no fixed schedule, just agreed upon times to record and getting the work done when it needs to be done.
Yeah. Let's do the lightning round and then the topic.
Yes. So Cthulhu Relief Latagan asks, do you prefer Pop-Tarts or strudels? I recognize that a strudel may be a much more sensory pleasing product, but I am nostalgic for Pop-Tarts. I have had Pop-Tarts since we talked about them on the network. I got bought a sampler box from Sam's Club with blueberry, strawberry, like this brown sugar, cinnamon, and the s'mores. And that has been very good. I've had two of those a week since I got one of those, since I got that box, and they take me back as part of my general regression.
It is, food is part of it as well.
Yeah.
I think that if I had a choice, I would choose strudels, but they feel rarer.
Yeah.
To me, I know I can just buy both of them in the store, so there's nothing rare about. It's like rare books. Like you can just go to a store and buy them. There's nothing rare about it.
Right.
There's nothing rare about strudels, but I like the taste of those more, even though I eat more Pop-Tarts, by which I mean 10 a year.
Right. Strudels need to be kept in the fridge or the freezer, which I think adds to the difficulty of them too.
Yeah. Difficult, but worth it.
Right.
The Dark Souls of toaster pastries.
Yeah.
Joseph asks, is there any chance that you guys will end up doing RE6? Sure.
Yeah. I don't see why not. We both like that game.
I almost guarantee it if the show goes on long enough. Like, we will do all of the mainline Resident Evil games.
Yeah.
And we've done almost all of them now.
Yeah. We feel comfortable setting that goal because we're most of the way there.
Yeah, because we only have two more to do. But we will probably, that series is really close to the absolute dead center of our Venn diagrams.
Yeah.
Of interest. Is there another series that we both, if you took the average of our liking, that we both like?
I mean,
as much?
Fallout is mostly in there. Yeah. No, but RE definitely. Yeah, no. And both of us are on record as being kind of defenders of 6 too, we've talked about Resident Evil 6 so much on the level just because all of us have played it at different times. Jala is a huge advocate for it. We did a stream of Resident Evil 6. Yeah. It's an absurd and flawed game, but I think that there's stuff to talk about there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I those RE, those late REs are things I like. So absolutely.
Yeah. David writes, all the talk about Devil May Cry and Dante's coolness got me thinking, which video game character do you think has the best or worst taste in music, assuming that they have or get access to music from our world? This is hard. I would say that the protagonist of Manhunt probably has really bad taste in music.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, probably a lot of just really sludgy, shock metal kind of stuff to it. Or at the very least, getting into some, I don't know, anything that I say is going to be specific and draw a defender, but just picture the worst of Stained or whatever is what I imagine that monster, that carnage without a symbiote gets into. Yeah.
Dante's really up there.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be the worst taste in music, but the person I would least want to talk about music with is Alan Wake.
Yes.
I think Alan Wake probably has okay taste in music, even though I'm sure he loves U2.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like early YouTube, but he would be very, very like enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, like early to mid YouTube, like he would consider like up to, 90s.
Yeah,
like he'd be like pretty defensive of pop. YouTube. But he'd probably like he'd listen to some music that like was good as well, but it would be intolerable to talk to him about it. Yeah, Chris Redfield would have annoying taste in music.
Yeah, a lot of jock
especially
jams.
now. It got worse, like as he got bulkier.
Yeah, yep. Got to get his pump on.
Yeah, it's just like it's only like angry motivation workout music. And then like his version of the save room is Evanescence or some shit. Like he puts that on to do cooldowns. Like I don't know. Yeah. Like that'd be pretty rough.
As far as good taste in music, this is this is tough. Like Wayne Newton in Fallout has really good taste in music.
Yeah, he absolutely does. The DJ, Mr. New Vegas. I would say most of the Fallout DJs have good taste in music.
Yeah.
Travis from Fallout 4, that's my favorite Fallout soundtrack. Mostly because it encompasses the other ones.
Yeah,
and adds some really killer, additions. But that's really good. I think that I betcha. Just because of recency bias, but I bet you Harry from Disco Elysium has good music.
Yeah.
Like I like disco, and he's got a really open mind.
Yeah, yeah. I think Harry would have a really good pop sensibility to him.
Yeah. Really like this song. This is good. I think he'd maybe take all comers maybe a little bit too much, but that's better than just enjoying Godsmack or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's a good answer. I think that we've hit it there. It's more fun to talk about the bad taste in music than anything.
Oh yeah, it's easier as well. Holland asks, "What's your favorite console controller conceptually and to actually use?" Two different questions.
Conceptually, I really like the GameCube controller, although I think that it's not that great to to use in your hands. The idea
it's so
of
weird how many people go to bat for that. Like I see so much love for the GameCube computer. GameCube controller.
GameCube computer. No, I like the idea of recognizing that certain buttons are, going to be, more commonly pressed. I think that just designing around what is going to be most frequently used is good. But I think that just like in general, as like a sculpture, as like a thing that you hold in your hand, I think that there's just enough that is off about it. But like, yeah,
it's got that crime D-pad.
Yeah, the D-pad is a crime. Well, they were designing. They thought that the D-pad was on its way out. Like,
yeah, but they were super wrong.
It was designed. It was designed with priorities. They were wrong priorities. I don't think it's wrong to design with priorities, though.
I mean, I think that's the risk you run, though, right?
Yeah.
Like whenever you do that, you're saying like, this is just how games will be.
Yeah.
And that's why like the PlayStation, kind of template, like that is a bigger, better version of like the Super Nintendo controller, like persists for so long.
Yes.
Because it's kind of future proof.
Yeah, no, the favorite to use, I mean, toss up between DualShock 4 and I got an Xbox One controller for my PC. Man, that's a really good controller. Like both of those are like it's especially the Xbox One controller has like the right like girth to it. Like it really just it like has places for your hand to make contact on it. Yeah, I think that controller design has just gotten better.
Yeah. Conceptually, I'm going to say the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller, and then to actually use, I will say the DualShock 4.
Yeah,
is my fave.
Yeah. So let's get into the topic.
Well, there's one last lightning round.
There is. Sorry, yes.
That is tied to things, and it's vaguely different than the last one.
Yeah,
I think this is worth addressing.
This is. I did not mean to skip this. Rick asks, "What makes a good cat? Cuddliness, chonkiness, being talkative. Cole, do you think you can identify these traits in the kitten that you're getting?" No, I don't think I can. I think that so much is written in pencil with a cat that small. Like the cat is literally like 2-3 weeks old at this point. It is not scared of me and it doesn't beep very much or meow very much, but all that can change. So
yeah,
I don't have control. It's just living in a barn. But as for what makes a good cat, I'll allow you to do that first, Gary, because you've been with cats for longer.
I like a cat that is a complicated cat has been my favorite kind of cat. In general, like both Roars and Pocket have had complications to them, not in terms of like medical complications, but like Pocket is spicy and Roars was skittish, but that makes the moments when they're not that feel more special to me.
Yeah.
So like when Roars would come out and be affectionate with me, but not with other people, that made me feel special. And Pocket, spending his day kind of being spiced can be pretty annoying. But then him, just deciding to just like be an absolute sweetheart, just always takes me not by surprise because it happens daily, but just feels really like nice.
Yeah.
Like to me, the thing that makes a cat a good cat is not being 100% a dog. Like,
right.
Not, to quote the Cats movie, a cat is not a dog. Where it's like they're not just desperate and greasily, looking for approval. They're their own being.
Yeah.
Like I like a cat who's his own person.
Yeah. I'm down with all of that. I think, like physically, the idea of like, oh, if it's chunky or whatever, every cat's its own cat. I don't have like a real preference on that. I think that things that I like in Greta, she is curious and confident. Like with the exception of like if a contractor comes over and makes a bunch of noise, she is always, like up there looking at new people. She has been very sociable when I've had like family over and stuff. She's not like hid, and that's very cool. She's very affectionate, but like in predictable scenarios. So like, it's kind of weird how regular she is, where she usually doesn't bother me at my desk, except for in the early afternoon when she hops up and she wants to be held. Right. And she never really does any of that elsewhere. She, doesn't really like being in bed with me. She'll come in and check on me in the morning, but not like wake me up. But like if I'm sitting on the recliner or sitting on the couch, she wants to be on my lap. So like she's curious, confident, and predictable, and affectionate without being needy. She's a very good cat.
Yeah. All cats can be good cats.
Yes.
Just treat them right and give them respect. If you treat them as a sentient entity, they'll do well by you.
Yeah. And, let them decide, let them come to you, because they will.
Yeah. Aesthetically, I love a fat cat.
Yeah.
Like if we're just saying what's good in a cat, like to look at or to touch.
Yeah.
Like give me an incredibly overweight cat. I love that shit.
Yeah.
A medicine ball with legs. Like that is what I want.
Yeah.
Moving on to our topic.
Yeah. Okay, so this will be you since I read the cat one.
Yeah. Douglas asks, and there's a question that relates to this as well, so we're kind of doing 2 for 1.
Yes.
Douglas says, falling out of love with video games. I've noticed throughout my life, I go through long stretches of not playing games, sometimes years. The time near the end of the PS2 and most of the PS3 is a black hole for my gaming memory. And just recently, the FF7 remake seemed to actively turn me off games for a few months at least. Have you ever had any spells such as these? What precipitated it? What got you back in? Perhaps it's too small for our topic, but hey, there it is.
It is not too small for a topic.
Yeah, like we'll see what happens. I don't have a ton of things planned, but I think this is a really universal experience, at least in terms of myself and people I've talked to. So it's worth thinking about.
Yes, we both have these. The question that was skipped over a little bit earlier, Rick writes, is this actually the same person? No, okay. Douglas is different than Rick. Okay.
They spell and pronounce their names differently.
Since starting Shelter in Place, I've already gone through a few cycles of weeks where I get through tons of games and weeks where I'm just not interested in the hobby. Do you experience periods of gaming fatigue at all? What tends to send you into them? Life events, taking on too beefy of a game, encountering a dud? What seems to trigger the end of them for you?
Yeah.
Two things to get out of the way at the start of this. We have answered questions about this before. Like people have asked like, hey, what do I do about this? It just accept that it's fine. Things are going to ebb and flow naturally in your life in relation to things. So like, you don't need to feel like you are failing games by not playing them or keeping up. Additionally, quarantine is an additional wrinkle on this. Everything about our environments is changing, and that is going to change our attitudes about this stuff as well. So
yeah, we're not meant to do this.
No.
Like we were not designed to do what we're doing.
Right.
In terms as a people right now. So everything that happens to you is okay, basically. Like if you're feeling a thing, like not only are you not failing yourself by video games, you're also not failing yourself by thinking that in the first place. You're okay.
Yeah.
Give yourself as much grace as possible.
Yeah.
I have like a big version of these and then like a small version, and small versions happen with some frequency. A couple times a year, I'll just have stretches where I'm like, this just doesn't sound good. And then the big period I had was similar to Douglas's, near the end of the PS2 into the PS3.
It's weirdly the same for me.
Maybe it wasn't a good generation.
It's possible.
There's like good stuff there, but maybe that was not, a great time.
Well, what did that coincide with in your life?
Moving out to Portland and honestly, getting a computer that could play games and playing fewer games because I was playing more of them or playing, not more of them. No.
Sorry,
playing games that are longer.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah. So like instead of, just kind of always looking for something new, it's like, I'm going to play Oblivion for a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
kind of poke at this when I have spare time.
So what I would find is like oftentimes when I've gone through these, kind of droughts personally, it's not that I'm playing that I'm not playing games. It's that I like retreat into something that feels familiar and comfortable. So like it is less about like expanding outward and keeping up with stuff, and when this happened, which I would like categorize broadly as like, let's say 2004 to 2007. For me is roughly when that roughly circumscribes when this happened for me. Like that was the end of high school and the beginning of college for me. I graduated high school in 2006 and went to college that same year. Like the thing that broke me out of like keeping up with new stuff was Halo 2 coming out. And like my multiplayer group just kind of like breaking apart because like we just couldn't agree to, that like playing that was good. Additionally, like online multiplayer broke apart, like the local play made it less of like a thing that we would do habitually. So like that was a bummer. Fewer people to talk about games with. There was, not really the impetus to like keep up with what was happening at that time as well. Like I was still primarily like reading magazines when they would come out. I wasn't really following game coverage online. So like that combined with like doing high school theater and show choir and golf and academic challenge, like I had a lot of stuff going on, and then ultimately like going to college and mostly like playing old stuff in the dorms with the people who would eventually become to form the level before Jolly joins, so like playing like RE4 there with them or whatever. But like the thing that really got me back into games and excited was, I remember specifically it was like 2007 when Mass Effect and Rock Band came out on the same day. And that was like, starter pistol basically for me, like getting back into shit.
There's definitely like, now you say that there was actually, around that same time, I also had a low period.
Yeah.
Like I did my CRPG, Team Fortress period when I moved back in with my mom for like half a year in my early 20s. And then when I moved out again, I lived in an apartment with Derek, with my roommate. We only really played games together.
Yeah.
Like that's what we played, like Mario Golf. We would like pass the controller playing Lost Levels.
Yeah.
It was really fun, but I didn't have video games set up in my room, in my own room very much, and did not really play.
Yeah.
I don't think I had a TV in my room. And then what got me back into games after that was getting a new computer eventually. And then when I moved out here, I was off for a while. And then just like got, even when I was off though, like to your point, like certain things would hum in the background.
Yeah.
Like I had a 360. I could probably count on two hands the number of games I've played on the 360. Like I haven't played very much on it.
Yeah.
But I played a lot of Rock Band.
Yes.
On it. Like if you can consider Rock Band to be its own thing, me and my ex-wife would play that together. We played tons of Rock Band.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a video game, it was its own activity. And those two different periods, when I was roommates with Derek and when I moved out here, coincided with a big major life event and then getting serious about being in a band.
Yeah.
Just having other stuff to do. can kind of come up, and that's okay. Like, it is a thing where video games, one of the strengths of the medium is that it can fill in the cracks between the bricks. So, and if you have fewer bricks, you have more time for mortar. And like, I play video games less recreationally, like outside of my job, when I have a lot more going on. So like when I was working on books, or when the band is like really flexing, I play fewer video games recreationally. As well. That's a lot of words just to say, like, when you don't have time for something, you do it less. But it's, you make time, like you make time for things. And I was less interested in making time for it during those periods.
Yeah. Like in my lull, like during that time, like late in high school, I was the kind of social butterfly who my main video game project was, like dicking around in EverQuest for like 40 minutes a week and not getting anywhere. But like that's the time when I like replayed all of the Myst games and like made a big notebook out of all that stuff as I was playing them. But like that was all that I did.
Yeah. It also it ties into like world state stuff, like world tendency. So like right now I have been not motivated to play new stuff. I've been playing what we're doing for work. And then having that feeling of like listlessly looking at games I could play. And maybe popping onto the store and like getting something, but nothing grabbing me. So that's kind of been the experience I'm in now. And it's just because of world tendency. It's just because we're in pure black world tendency.
Right.
But then, so that can be a big factor for this.
For me, I have found myself playing less. Because this summer has been, we've done a lot of big games between Tactics Ogre and Disco Elysium. Both of those were very time consuming games that also took up a lot of focus and mental energy. But additionally, like, they've needed me up on that wall, Gary. Like I have needed to be up on that wall, doom scrolling, watching the fire to make sure it doesn't spread too quickly.
Because you're going to do something about it. By watching it, I'm keeping it in check, Gary. Yeah, exactly.
I'm up on the wall.
It's like
Schrödinger's
Schrödinger's world state. Totally. Like I've been doing that, or escaping from doing that by watching Simpsons and Seinfeld and reading Shadowrun second edition source books and shit. As we talked about, like that kind of escapism can coincide. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this topic is because I had a 1-2 punch that is breaking me out of this. Now, which was something we talked about earlier today in a bonus episode thing, where it was playing the Tony Hawk demo and feeling excited about a game coming out, like in a concrete way, which I hadn't for a while. Even though that is its own retro thing. But and then yesterday I installed, I was like, I'm going to play through Bloodlines.
Ooh.
Fuck this. And I found a mod that adds a bunch of content.
Nice.
So I'm doing a modded Bloodlines thing. And I was like, I should let's play this. And then I was like, no. That'll make me not want to do it.
that will turn it into content. No, this is for me. Work. This is for me.
Just play it. If you want to record a Duckfeed Presents at the end to talk about it, great. But don't just have a thing for you. And I had the thing you look to video games for, which is that time travel effect. Like yesterday, I started playing it at 4:30, and then it was like 9:30, and I was like, "What the fuck happened?" It was awesome. It felt like whoa. Am I 16? What the fuck is this?
I don't lose hours.
This is great. So like I think I'm turning a corner on that. But to me, they're very influenced by your macro world state, like what you're doing in your personal life, and then the grander world state of what's happening in the world. And it comes and goes.
It's really weird what'll break you out of it too. For me, like I mentioned, I mentioned Rock Band and Mass Effect for like, current games, but also like there was a summer, during college where I just decided like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a hold of like a bunch of old weird survival horror games. And like, I got, Clock Tower 3 and Haunting Ground and, Echo Night Beyond and all of that. And I just decided to like spend my days playing those too. Just like, I'm just going to, like set aside time to like play through all of these. And it was like playing as a project that I was excited about, not for
even
like output or anything.
Content.
Right.
Like giving yourself a constraint like that. Like I feel like doing this thing in order, can kind of help with that. It's also like, we're talking about this as if it's, at least semi universal. Like it's really interesting. one of my all-time best friends who I have a lot of philosophical differences with is Will, and Will doesn't do this. Like, Will is constantly chasing the new, and will just be like, yeah, I stayed up really late playing this new game.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of amazing to me. Like, there's no judgment in that. Like, I don't think that there's a qualitative aspect of it. I just think it's really fascinating to see.
Yeah.
Somebody who's just like, yeah, I poked around the Steam thing, found this game and beat it this weekend. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, how did you do that? You know, what does that mean?
It's a weird trick.
Yeah. What are you doing? You just found an indie point and click adventure game and beat it? What are you doing?
Really alien. What? Man?
Yeah.
Huh?
Like it's just wild to see. So it's not that universal, but people asking at least means that we're not alone.
Yeah.
In having that feeling, which is nice, a good feeling.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we both have a similar temperament in that regard. Like, I've never felt like an alien with bugs crawling out of my ears for having like down times and stuff like that. Weirdly, something else that has got me like excited about playing new stuff is getting this new TV.
I can see that.
Yeah, like it's a bigger, nicer TV that like I felt comfortable spending money on because I'm not fucking going anywhere, Gary. I'm not spending money outside of the house. So, but yeah, like, I don't know, firing that up and like playing the Tony Hawk demo, which is effectively a 20-year-old game with HDR. Like, I don't know, that's cool. Like, I'm excited about sitting in front of this nicer screen, for as superficial as that is. Yeah,
looking at a prettier box.
Yeah.
I think this is really tied into like getting that feeling of new, and this could very well be like our advice theme for the entire network is like, let yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
But a big part of this, I think, is when I go into one of these states, a lot of times it's because games have built up in a backlog to where they do feel like an obligation I'm not meeting.
Yeah.
And this is apart from work game, but it will just like, I'll like open up my GOG library.
Oh,
I'm
shit.
like, oh, fuck.
Why would you
like,
do that?
That's there too. Like, man, I want to play Dragon Shard at some point, and start feeling grody about myself. Or like, I own all the Spiderweb software games and I'm sure I would like them, but I haven't played them.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Avernum, I barely know him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll just feel like garbage. And then when that fades, because I can't logic myself out of that.
No.
I will try to be like, this is stupid, Gary. You're stupid. This is stupid. You're stupid. And it just, weirdly, that doesn't make me feel better. Yeah. I don't feel happier or better just berating myself about it. It just passes. And then I'm like, you know what? It's okay that I'm not going to play this game I picked up and thought I would play. If I never play Quantum Conundrum, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then I get out of it and I start doing stuff I'm interested in, including sometimes I will end up going back to something I'm interested in because I've let myself off that hook.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and just like a broader thing, like, you got to listen to yourself. Like there are some things that even if you don't want them, even if you don't feel like doing them, you probably ought to do them. Physical activity, eating a green every once in a while, like doing your taxes, like all of that. But like generally for like recreation, if you don't feel like doing something, what are you getting out of making yourself do it? There's a huge masochism component to recreation for a lot of people. You just follow your energy. I say that, and it's it sounds like an incredibly hippy dippy thing outside of context, but like if you are not like leaning into not backdrafts, leaning into tailwinds and avoiding headwinds, like how far are you getting based on your input? Like enjoyability, out of enjoyment, right?
Yeah. 1,000,000,000%. Like I cannot. The biggest sea change in kind of my posture towards life that has happened in the last like 4 or 5 years is me leaning into instinct. Yeah. Like if something, you slapping some mosquitoes there, bud?
No.
I recording this from the swamp.
No, sorry. I had a game case that was open. I didn't think it would come through, but apparently it came through quite loudly. I snapped it closed, Gary.
Yeah, damn bugs. See, Cole talks a big game about how clean his house is, but silverfish are everywhere.
They're my roommates, Gary.
Yeah.
You just talked about let yourself off the hook.
Yeah, let yourself off the hook for your silverfish, everybody. But just being like, you know what, this is what I want, and that's okay. You know, like it's okay to obviously question shit that's harmful, but eventually you'll get kind of a guiding compass that will, that kind of comes from experience that eventually will just kind of guide you in a lot of ways, I think. And it's even down to media. Like I remember when I finally sat down to play Dragon Age, I can actually beat it. I was just like, you know what? That sounds good right this second.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't sit down and examine it. I was just like, that sounds good. I played it, and I played the second one and had a good time, and it was just the right time for it.
Yeah.
And everything is so complicated. There's so much alchemy that is going on inside your brain that having a complete scientific causal understanding of shit like that is a fool's errand, I think.
Yeah. And again, just a common thing that we come back to in these discussions, and I feel like it's a cliche, but they're, different currencies spend differently. It sounds like what we're saying is like never lean into resistance, right? Like if you feel yourself saying like, this isn't great. Well, like there are a bunch of different kinds of resistances, and discernment and instinct will let you know which resistances to lean into, what is going to be worth it to you, what is going to be edifying, and what is just going to be a garbage way to spend your time that will not, build you up in any particular way.
Yeah.
Right.
And knowing that both those things exist, like it's not like easy things are good and hard things are bad, but it's also not the opposite.
Yeah.
Like it is a thing where like there is the ability to put in a lot of effort and have it be for naught.
Yeah.
Like I beat the end boss of Sekiro and didn't feel good about it.
Right.
That was not me leaning into a challenge for personal good. Like I did it for work, but that wasn't edifying,
right,
to me. I didn't like it. Just as we use soul stuff as an example a lot because we do a whole other show on them, but that's just the easy example. That doesn't mean necessarily though that I should just I'm just going to play Bejeweled all the time.
Right.
Like I could if I want to, but there is a space in the middle of being like, I'm not in the mood for that kind of challenge, but I am in the mood for like a literary challenge. So this is a good time to play like Disco Elysium or Torment or something. Same thing with other games. I like Divinity Original Sin 2 came out. Everything I read about it was like, this will be my favorite thing in the world. I wasn't in the mood for that resistance at that time. And by waiting for me to be in the mood for that resistance, which that's an incredibly hard and very deep game, it became one of my favorite games. Like it rocketed up my personal charts. Yeah. Because I wanted that kind of resistance. So it's not just do easy baby stuff all the time. Right. It's know that, like you said, different currencies spend differently, and it's okay to be in the mood for one. Like the ease of something will be relative to how ready you are for it. Yeah.
Because I hate being misunderstood, I don't want anybody to think that all we're saying is just do what feels good. We're not like what's his name, the self-help author.
Goodman?
Yeah, we're not Brad Goodman. Taking advice from Rudiger. We're not that is not what we are doing. It's more about discernment, right?
Yeah. It's like find something that like you can have both.
Yeah.
You don't have to treat life as a zero-sum game with things. And this applies to all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be like, I don't want to do this, therefore it's good for me, therefore I'll do it. You can find something that's good for you and you want to do. And that's not actually that hard because we live in a world of infinite media.
Yeah.
It can be hard to have the willpower, and the discoverability can be hard, but it's very possible.
Yeah, there's no reason to ever be bored. I think that boredom has been replaced with discontentment. I think that is an important thing to realize as well, and to recognize that like I can't remember the last time I was bored, but I can remember like just nothing sounds good.
Oh, right. I've been depressed all the time.
Yeah.
Like that's depression. I'm not bored. I'm fucking depressed.
Yeah.
Like
I do that a lot where sometimes I just describe something and realize, oh yeah, that's just depression. Okay.
Man,
cool.
It's just depression has been the theme for the last couple last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Just I'm describing depression.
Damn it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Disregard.
No, it's okay. It happens.
Yeah.
But just the idea that you can have both, and it's also like the kind of easy and hard dichotomy of that kind of stuff. Like if you are going back to like, I'm not really playing games very much right now. All I'm doing is playing like a mobile game like I'm just playing, endless golf. Golf on Mars for a while on my phone, and that's really all the gaming I'm doing. It's not necessarily true that is like a simple valueless carb,
right,
as a thing either. Like it's, even if that's just what you're in the mood for, that's good in and of itself. But you can also get things out of that. Like we spent a bunch of time talking about that game, particularly as like what that does.
Yeah.
And there's a grand smorgasbord of like feelings you can have. And you don't always have to aim for like what would be the most objectively good feeling to have, or rich or like productive feeling, I think.
And I think something that, we've not explicitly said, and maybe it doesn't need a specific mention, but here we are, is that, if you are holding yourself to the standard of people that you are reading online, people who are either in the press or are very prolific in talking about new things, and like, oh, they're playing all this new stuff, I feel like I ought to be as well in order to like stay caught up. Disabuse yourself of that notion. You are not beholden. Like the release schedule calendar is not your manager.
Yeah. 1 billion%.
Yeah.
Like FOMO is a really, I think that is an unhealthy impulse, like in general. And I think that I don't see it leading to happiness a lot.
Yeah.
In a general sense, I don't find people being like, yes, I'm really happy that I felt guilty for not being able to be part of this conversation.
Yeah.
You can want to be part of that conversation, but the pathologic feelings that come with it of like, if you don't, that's probably something to try to divest yourself of if you're able to.
Yeah. Like FOMO can lead to you doing good things, but FOMO wasn't the only way to get you there to doing something that is edifying or enjoyable. Right.
Yeah. You can experience the good side of that without the bad.
Yeah. Like you can, you can do those things without lashing yourself or holding yourself, to somebody else's expectation, even if it's invisible and not directly stated to you. Yeah, that was more positive than I expected it to be, Gary.
Well, it's because we turned it around to our like be nice to yourself canard.
Yeah.
That we always do. Yeah. Which is good because it's a good message.
Agreed. So let's move on to people's responses about Devil May Cry.
Yeah. And just a reminder, we'll be doing the Disco Elysium responses at the end.
Yes.
Moonborn says via contact, and this is the sponsor of the episode, so big thanks to Moon. Devil May Cry is another game in a long list that took me many tries to get into. Though a few hours with the game showed me that the fundamentals of the stylish action genre were already starting to take root, there's one key difference that sets it apart: deliberation. Modern stylish action games, and even some of their more tangential offshoots, operate on a degree of speed and looseness that allows you to mash the attack and dodge to a degree if you don't care about being technical. Not Devil May Cry, though. The moveset mechanics are simpler and slower to the point where every input counts. You can't panic mash your way through a giant fight against anybody but the lowest level mooks, and boss fights remain just as tense and thrilling as their modern counterparts. I don't wish that modern stylish action as a whole adhered to the style of gameplay, but DMC1 taught me that simpler, more deliberate action games can be just as thrilling as more spectacular ones. I wouldn't say no to more like it, though I suppose that's why Dark Souls exists.
Yeah. Or you don't have to go all the way to Dark Souls where combat is extremely deliberate. I think that a nice halfway between Devil May Cry and that is God Hand. God
Hand being forever my gold standard of the genre.
Yeah. For reason. It's an incredibly good game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like that's not a mashy game. Like you are, like thinking very clearly about what combos you want to put in. You are thinking very clearly about the consequences of being hit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a different experience too with Devil May Cry. Like I was able to mash more than this. Like a lot of the endless fights against Phantom for me were getting my devil trigger up and then just mashing. I did a lot of mashing in Devil May Cry actually.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it probably wouldn't have been better to use more deliberation, but in terms of what was required of me and my experiences, lots of mash.
Yep. I think also, the move economy has changed by the fact that there is no easy dodge that you can do.
Yeah.
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 Dave writes in via contact saying, Devil May Cry was one of the very first games that I ever owned on my birthday PS2. I like the idea of a birthday PS2. I have two PS2s, my regular one and the one I play on my birthday. But I know what Dave means. It was one of the first games I ever owned on my birthday PS2, and I was immediately addicted to the modern gothic aesthetic of the characters and settings and the hilariously over-the-top action. At the age of 15, I loved the I can beat you up feeling of the moveset. I did, however, make the mistake of convincing my parents to get me the console, but not the memory card. I never made it further than the first Nilo Angelo fight without a save file. In revisiting retro games, have you ever found yourselves caught off guard by progress loss in a manual save game in the age of autosave that we now live in? Yes, and it sucks very badly when it happens.
Yeah. This I mentioned earlier, I've been replaying Bloodlines, and Bloodlines autosaves are not very aggressive.
Right.
So I, will die at a part and have to redo a stretch longer than I expect.
Yeah.
This even was a thing in Disco Elysium. We talked about that, like how the autosaving is not very aggressive. That memory card generation.
Yeah.
What a shitty move.
Just really bad.
You could have built those in. You could add some onboard memory.
Yeah.
I guarantee that there was technology for it.
But they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah.
Fuckers.
They want that $24.99 for the 8 megabyte memory card.
Yeah. Such horseshit.
Yeah.
Ignacio says via contact, I'm a huge fan of the Devil May Cry games, and I could go on and on about them, but I just want to touch on two short topics in this response. Last time I wrote in, I talked about the Doom 2016 board game. Well, guess what also has a board game? Devil May Cry, The Bloody Palace, is being made by the people who did the Dark Souls board game, and is still in production as of August 2020. I'm interested to see how those mechanics will translate to tabletop gaming. I also want to shout out a YouTube channel called Donguri990. They do combo videos, mod showcases, advanced tutorials, and boss rush videos for the later Devil May Cry games. High-level DMC play is incredible to watch, doubly so if you're familiar with how those games play. I'd recommend their Combo Mad videos on DMC 3, 4, and 5. Spoilers for those games, of course.
Yeah, I can imagine that those games, those videos are very impressive. Watching people who are good at something do that thing they're good at is always very good. I would need to have played the game to appreciate the spectacle. It's kind of like, I can respect that there's an awful lot going on the screen when somebody plays Marvel versus Capcom 3, but having not played it, it just kind of looks like a lot of flash,
Yeah. So, same, like having that kind of baseline competency is what makes watching people do anything like that makes sense. To me. I have no idea how a Devil May Cry board game is going to work.
I don't know.
I thought Dark Souls was too action focused for that board game to be very good.
Yeah, I didn't like that board game very much, and I am inherently skeptical of anything that studio puts out. Like, the miniatures are cool. I'm glad I have those, but that's not a fun board game to play. No,
the miniatures are incredible. Yeah. Like, the best thing that Levi running a Dark Souls inspired Iron Kingdoms campaign was the best thing that came out of the miniatures. That board game was super disappointing, even though, like, I know that you can kludge it together to be more fun. Like, you can house rule it. But, you don't necessarily want to have to do that.
Right, yeah. I would like to come out, come out in the wash.
Yeah. What if it was just good?
Yeah. What if it was good? Yeah.
And Devil May Cry specifically seems like really weirdly suited to that. Like, there have been games that have tried to simulate more action based kind of real-time things, like that Yomi feeling, specifically from the game Yomi.
Right.
And mixed results is the way I would probably put that.
A tabletop game where so much is based on chance. Dice rolls are the way that you put in the modification, right? To make sure that that what you want to happen doesn't always happen. That seems at odds with high level Devil May Cry play, where you are doing things very intentionally.
Yeah.
It seems like it would strip out that intention that is satisfying for a lot of people.
Which is so weird when they also take something that is so reflex based and put it to a medium without reflexes. That was a big thing with the Dark Souls thing, is like, it was cool learning the boss move patterns, but not being able to dodge just felt weird.
Yeah. Like, it's not inevitable that I take damage. It's like, it shouldn't be.
Yeah. It's kind of one of the big charms of the game.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so thanks everybody for writing in about Devil May Cry. We do have more responses. That we're going to announce the upcoming games first.
Right.
If you have anything to say about September's games, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact. Those games are, and we're actually switching the order on these.
Thank you.
We were originally going to do Lords of Magic first because of all that COVID brain that we just spent like 3 hours talking about. I have had a hard time doing the run up to it.
Yeah.
It's neat. Like, it is my shit, and I've made some real inroads into it. I read the manual. I enjoyed that. It's just, we talked about those different kinds of resistances, and I needed a little bit more time to get a run up to that kind of resistance. So we're doing Plants vs. Zombies first. And to give you an idea of my resistance, I'm also going to talk about Plants vs. Zombies 2, which I played.
Is a good game.
Is good. I played a dumb amount of in my depression throws. So that's actually going to happen first. Then Lords of Magic Special Edition. And the thing that makes that special edition is this expansion that has different missions in it. Some of those are incredibly long. So we're going to talk about the premises of those, but not necessarily play through all of them.
Right.
It's kind of the idea. So we're going to talk about Lords of Magic in a general sense. Like, there are different units and factions and such. We're going to explain the game. It is going to be largely generality based because there's not a lot of storyline to that. And the actual scenarios are like challenge scenarios, like a SimCity challenge scenario. So we will mention them, but some of them take 30 hours to beat on their own. According to some research I was doing. So we're not going to do all those. So it's going to be kind of an overview of a very deep game. Think also if we had done like Civilization or something.
Yeah. Or look back to our, Masters of Orion 2 episode. Yeah.
Yep. Closest thing to that in DNA for sure.
Yeah. And then the premium episode for that month is going to be God of War 2018. Yeah.
And then October,
exciting. Oh my gosh. 4 games I'm very excited to get into here, Gary. Yeah. So,
and 2 of them are kind of scary. So unlike last couple Octobers, we might get some scares.
Yeah. Who knows? But October,
I think one of these is at least a little scary.
Yes.
Okay. At least a little bit.
These are all spooky themed, let's say. So October's games, first we are doing Dino Crisis 2, which is, pretty goofy for a horror game, but it comes from that DNA. Again, this is another offshoot of Resident Evil that Capcom was working on. So like weirdly a theme that we're running through with Devil May Cry and my stream of Onimusha earlier this year, and then this Capcom did weird things with the bones that they created for Resident Evil. So we're going to talk about that. After that, we are covering Soma, the the existential sci-fi horror game created by Frictional, the team that did the Amnesia games, or
and the
Penumbra.
Amnesia game.
Yes, and the upcoming Amnesia game. I'm curious, that has to be delayed because of COVID.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I haven't heard anything about it.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. We've both Cole has Let's Played that, and we covered it on Comrade. So both of us have covered it in some capacity, but just not on this show.
Yep.
But excited about that. Next, we're doing Resident Evil 5, which is not super scary at all. But I played through it earlier this year on the Switch. I played through it single player for the first time and had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it is fun.
It's weird to expect it to be. Like, don't hold it to the don't hold it to the RE4 standard, but yeah.
Don't hold anything to the RE4 standard. You'll just be disappointed every day of your fucking life.
Right. You can be more kind to yourself than that.
It has a lot of pleasures to it.
Yeah.
While not not being RE4.
Yeah.
But still good.
Yeah.
And can be a good Gary and Cole talk about race.
Yeah, cool. So let's get that
for at least
there.
a little bit, because people love it when we do that.
Yeah.
But then our premium episode, which is the one I think is scary, like undeniably scary of this month, is Doom 3.
Yeah, the Forgotten Doom game. Some people forgot it intentionally because they did not like the way that it went, but it very much is in a survival horror kind of vein.
I think you and I are both Doom 3 stans to a degree.
Yes.
Yeah. Defenders. Like I like Doom 3 quite a bit. It's not exactly Doom. It doesn't feel like Doom 2 or Doom 2016, but it is still a good game, a good scary game.
Yeah. And it's available on everything. Like, it came out on Switch. Like, you can get it, like, it frequently goes on sale on Switch for like $3. So
yeah. Yep, easy to play. So that's October. We have the rest of the year and the early part of 2021 booked. For October, of the games that we have talked about just now, all of them but 2 have been backer demands. If you want to do a backer demand, we are booking 2021.
Yep.
You can do so by being a patron. We appreciate everybody who has done so.
Yes, thank you. And you do not have to back at that level. That is very high, but you can get a lot by even just backing at $5. You get the full version of those premium episodes. You get a whole other shows, Bonfireside Chat, Unfilmable, drawing to a close, but we're going to replace that with something else when that finishes out. Yeah, there's lots. We have action packed even that tier of our Patreon for you.
Yep. And we have some new stuff coming down the pike.
Yes.
Pike. Not just, the unfilmable thing, but we have some neat announcement stuff coming up.
Yep.
So look out for that. You can buy Duck Bundle 4, which is the audio from Duckfest 2 Enter the Compu Realm.
Yep.
Now if you go to duckfeed.tv/store.
That is 12 hours of audio, and it's edited. Like, I went through and I smoothed it out and added music and stuff like that. So it is a different thing than if you just went and looked at an archive of it.
Yeah, it's neat. Like, I think that you'll enjoy it, and all of the proceeds from that go to
Color of Change.
Color of Change. And we don't talk about it a lot, but all of our old bundles are also available and also still go to charity. So if you go to that thing and want to get extra content and want to give to a good cause, we understand money is tight, but people, blessed be the ones who let their blessings go.
Yeah.
Just support some good.
Yeah. So that is at duckfeed.tv/duckbundle if you want to see where all of those are.
Yeah. And then ratings, reviews, and Apple Podcast, of course. Welcome. We will see you next week with Plants vs. Zombies, and there's going to be a musical sting, and then we're going to read your Disco Elysium thing. So if you haven't played Disco Elysium, which we demand you do, then duck out now. Yeah.
All right, so everybody here is okay with being spoiled on Disco Elysium, right?
You're all cool, right? None of you are cops, right?
You have
all
to
of you
tell
are
us.
cops.
Yeah,
like, what type of cops, though, are you?
Right.
So it's like the reverse, like, you're all cops, right? Yeah.
Oh, man. I thought of it just a terrible joke. That's what you say at a clan meeting. So.
Yeah.
I just wanted
what
to
if you're lucky?
Get in
all
woke,
cops, and then cops
jokes.
suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to open up here. Jack, who was the person who graciously sponsored those episodes. But Jack writes in via contact saying, "Thank you guys so much for your thoughtful and excellent coverage of this game. I picked it up during one of the lowest points of my thoughts on my recent divorce. The X something content got to me then, and it still gets to me now. But once I reached the denouement, I was truly surprised by how optimistic things turned out. It really gave me an emotional jolt to see someone in the process of spiraling out of control realize that the ship could be righted. About 10 months later, I too have crawled out of my own personal idiot doom spiral, and I have a lot of excellent experiences with games such as this and content by you good boys to thank for a significant part of that. Dios mío."
Dios mío, indeed. Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks for pushing us into playing this, and I'm glad things are getting better.
Yes.
Someday we will karaoke again when the world opens up.
Yeah. We look forward to that day, to the return.
Yeah. Gordon says via contact, I went the whole way through the game sending screenshots of dialogue to my coworker. Never before has games writing just demanded that I show it off. How could it possibly be so damn good? What broke me was the conversation with your own gut when it tried to convert you to fascism. And when you tell it that fascism kind of sounds bad, it agrees and renames it traditionalism. S tier. So,
I never did that. That is so good. The way that you justify a horrible belief by accepting a better name for it.
Yeah. Very well observed.
Yeah. Nice. I'm not a Nazi. I'm all right.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not all right. I'm a free thinker.
Yeah.
I'm a race realist.
Wow. I'm an identitarian. I eat identities.
Yeah. I'm a race real estate agent.
Which is every real estate agent's up through like the mid 60s and then for a long time after that too. Yeah.
See Lovecraft Country.
Oh yeah.
On HBO now.
Is that good? Have you watched that?
I haven't, but I read the book.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be really good. I'm waiting for it to be out. But there's a lot of the plot is about that specific, at least in the book.
Gotcha.
Was about that aspect of realty.
Oh, nice. Samuel writes, one of my greatest gamer moments was passing and failing the exact right checks. So Kim took a bullet for Harry during the big showdown against the mercenaries. Don't worry, he was taken to a hospital and stabilized. And I spent the last day with Kuno as my partner. According to Steam achievement statistics, this is not the way the game always ends. I'm done with saving the world. I just want murder mysteries and labor dispute mediation in my RPGs.
We talked about this in the episode. I was very surprised by how many people had the Kuno ending.
Yeah.
But that's a function of Disco Elysium where every time someone tells you about a divergent path, you're like, wait,
whoa,
what?
Huh?
You know, everyone says that. Like everyone feels like their playthrough is canonical.
Yeah.
This is having that long shadow effect that Dark Souls had where I'm like, why should I care about this? Because it's not, you know, the thing I keep saying, like, good games aren't about that. Good games are about alcoholic cops solving murders.
Yeah. Which is categorically untrue, but emotionally untrue to our experience, or emotionally true to our experience.
It feels like it right now.
Yeah.
When there's just not anything else that is scratching that itch.
Yeah.
Which is part of why I started replaying Bloodlines, because at least there's a little bit of that politics and like, you know, nuance and shit to that.
That's, and anarchy versus tradition. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very hard to be like, yes, I care about, anything really. Yeah. You know, like you put anything in that spot.
Yeah. You know, and you got to be careful with that because that's also a description of depression.
Yeah. No, this is definitely a description of depression, but the idea that Disco Elysium recast my depression in a different light is a powerful statement.
Agreed.
Yeah. Due to a mix of role-playing choices, missed story paths, and personal/subjective experience. Instead, the emotional climax of the game, for me, came during the standoff. The theme for my playthrough was atonement. My Harry was a formerly talented, Matlock, just the facts ma'am style cop who made a few poor choices, and hey, Pocket.
Hey, Pocket.
Casey says via contact. I didn't find the true ending as affecting as you two did due to a mix of role-playing choices, missed story paths, and personal/subjective experience. Instead, the emotional climax of the game for me came during the standoff. The theme for my playthrough was atonement. My Harry was a formerly talented, Matlock, just the facts ma'am style cop who made a few poor choices and set out on this case to prove his self-worth to himself and to others. After 20 hours of apologizing, stammering, and generally bumblefucking my way through the most basic detective activities, I ran into an armed conflict, made a clutch hand-eye coordination roll, and put a single bullet through the skull of a fascist nutjob. In my headcanon, pulling through during that single herring moment set Harry up for the broader redemption that came with the true ending. What a game.
Also a good story.
Yeah. I feel like it's really similar to how I played my Harry, and I also found that to be like a climax as well. Like we talked about that in the episodes. It feels like the game has multiple climaxes to its different themes.
Yeah,
and that was a real competence climax for my Harry as well.
It's very funny that like as media gets older, people start like pulling like different references and mixing them up. The fact that Casey says Matlock is just the facts ma'am makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Sir, that is Joe Friday. Right. You say Dragnet. Like, yeah, it's it's Joe Friday who says just the facts. Matlock is the lawyer who hates young people.
Doesn't Matlock say there's just one more thing? That's Columbo.
Yeah, that's Columbo. Yeah.
Matlock doesn't even have a saying. I think this is Matlock's fault, not.
No, it's not Casey's fault. And also, like nobody should be responsible for knowing all this old stuff. And it's not reasonable to know all the old stuff. It's not reasonable for me to bring it up.
It's not reasonable to know the new stuff either. God,
is there I need to go and just watch and see if there's a way to watch Columbo. That's a fucking good show, man.
Columbo's pretty good. It has that thing where like I feel like all of those shows are a little longer than I want them to be.
Yeah.
Like every 70s show. I don't want them to be like 50 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah. I've enjoyed Columbo.
But yeah, agreed that is a good. I mean, like even within the standoff, there are multiple things that could be a redemption moment. Like, for me getting Kim to trust me, like that test that ended up saving both of us, was hugely cathartic.
I love a redemption story that feels like it has the appropriate extremes. Like the bad stuff feels bad enough, and the good stuff feels good enough. Like contrasting it with something that doesn't have the same scope. It's just the first thing that popped in my head. This is not me. I wouldn't write this in an essay, right? But like, there's a big theme of redemption in Final Fantasy IV, for example.
Right.
But the frustrating thing about that was it was an accident. Like bombing the village was not something you wanted to do.
Right. You were a tool. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I understand why they did that, because you're the hero and they didn't want you to be a war criminal. But it just made, and like for the story that tells, it does a great job with that. But like, it would have been if he was actually aware of what he was doing. And it was like, you don't have to redeem yourself for accidents like that.
Yeah.
Or you do, but just like way lesser.
You can make it right. Like it's about those particular people, and maybe there's something like Cecil immediately removes himself from the situation where he could be a tool to do that again. But but the idea that like he's just got this guilt, like you can have a lot of guilt for something you do accidentally, but it's never going to be as strong as the guilt for stuff you did just being an ass. Yeah,
man,
just being an ass. It's a powerful thing.
Super powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like one of my friends, like they got drunk. One of my buddies like punched another one of my buddies.
Oh no!
Got real mad at him like a long time ago.
Oh.
And I think about him as somebody who like kind of like romanticizes that kind of thing. A little bit like he's just like, yeah, this is just what men of passion do. And stuff. And then later, like he's just like really ashamed about it because of course he is.
Yeah.
Because it was dumb and he shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So.
Riley writes in via contact saying Disco Elysium taps into what the late Mark Fisher described as capitalist realism. The idea that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. Revolution was tried and failed. Our chance for a better future has come and gone, and all there is now is waiting for the clock to tick down on imminent disaster, be that at the ever-encroaching pale or climate change. It made me feel like shit, and I loved it. This game hit me with the exact despair that I feel in my lowest moments and let me linger on it. A lot of leftist media will focus on hope for a better future and the things that we can do to get us closer to it. Communist Harry isn't entirely without that hope, and seeing him try to build himself back up from his lowest moment in the face of an utterly uncaring world is great, but I admire the game for mostly focusing on a different but equally real emotional space we don't see explored nearly as much.
Yeah, that's great.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a super... so I never knew that idea that it is impossible to imagine the end of capitalism. I never knew that as that had like a term attached to it, capitalist realism. So I appreciate Riley filling me in on this so I can go and read some Mark Fisher. Yeah,
it's really pretty, like, that is a real idea. It's a well-observed observation.
Yeah. I mean, and all you have to do is look at liberals on Twitter to see the limits of the imagination. Yeah.
There's literally no way out of this.
Right.
Like, this is just how it has to be. It'll all be better if we get Trump out.
Yep.
It'll all go away, everybody.
Yeah. Ooh, man. This this will all be better once the symptom goes away. You're still profoundly sick, sir. Then once the symptom goes away.
Yeah, I can't wait for the symptom to go away.
Yeah.
Love getting rid of symptoms.
Yeah.
Dylan says via contact, I have yet to finish Disco Elysium. You shouldn't be listening to this part yet, Dylan. I have yet to finish Disco Elysium, as I am enjoying wrestling with its density as I would a big-ass novel. But I wanted to write in specifically to brag about one of my best friends, who was one of the writers on the game. Neat. We met in third grade at a summer camp for extremely pasty indoor kids who all wanted to become authors. And it simply makes me happy to know that he made good on that dream by contributing his work to the modern game known for its writing. Specifically, my friend contributed a lot of material to the bookstore, one of my favorite areas of the game, and penned a particularly pornographic paragraph about the tactile delight of unboxing a new board game. I have nothing to add to the discussion, but I just wanted to share my secondhand pride. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool that you know a person who did that crazy cool thing.
That's amazing.
I feel bad for not doing a lot of reading in the bookstore. I wish I could comment more specifically on what your friend did, but
I did a degree, but I do not remember the specifics. I did the board game thing I did see, and that is good.
Yeah. But yeah, no, if you still talk to them, pass it along. Say we love it. Say these two nobody podcasters really enjoyed your work among all these millions of people who enjoyed your work.
You never heard of, like your shit.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. It's okay to be proud that you know somebody who did something cool. That's fine.
Well, it's just that you're not saying it for you. Like we're not after this. We're not being like, man, Dylan is fucking cool. Like I'm sure Dylan is cool, but this is just you want us to join you in cheering on your buddy.
Yeah,
like that's a noble, virtuous act.
Yeah. John writes via contact saying, I put Disco Elysium down after 10 hours thinking that it wasn't for me, but I picked it up one more time for the show. Some of my initial resistance came from the feel bads generated when failing a high percentage check due to an unlucky roll. However, I do agree that removing the dice rolls would be a huge detriment. Checks would become simple stat gates or require more modifiers. It would also potentially remove the experience of failing unless they hid the stat requirements for the first attempt. Furthermore, you would no longer be able to get past a stalled investigation with a lucky roll. I wondered if they removed the dice rolls. Sorry, I wondered if they removed the dice rolls for just white checks, but kept them for the suspense in red checks. But there'd still be the same problems there. It still goes to show how thoroughly the devs thought through the system. Thank you both for covering Disco Elysium and for the show and for getting me to finish this nuanced, unique experience.
I've talked to a couple of people about those feel bads for that, including a mutual friend of ours.
Okay,
and I don't see it. I think that to me, it's like I understand it intellectually, but I really disagree with, that being the way to, they should have done it. And like John ultimately doesn't want them to do it that way either. But like,
right.
I just feel like you would lose so much by getting rid of that as opposed to trying to get rid of the part of yourself that feels bad. Like this is something where I felt like this was a work that was 100% worth me, in that element, meeting it more than halfway. Yeah. And giving up that gamer feel kind of thing.
I think that they did the requisite work in this to compensate for that feel bad. Insofar as, failing is still beneficial to you. It is always fail forward, that there is always a way there's always a way to try again or move forward if you fail. Like there's never really a way to get like permanently stuck, at least as far as I know. So yeah, I can see getting annoying and, I can see getting annoyed, but I personally can't put myself in the headspace where I feel slighted by it.
Well, they want you like so much of the rest of the game to get the full like effect of it. I feel like you have to kind of divorce yourself from thinking of games in a traditional like player win fail.
Yeah.
Win lose kind of dichotomy. Like it does feel good to lose or feel bad to lose stuff in games, but this game doesn't want you to approach it like a gamer.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be, you shouldn't feel bad about failing a check in Disco Elysium the way you feel bad about getting hit by a boss in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Or like not getting tagged by a ghost in Pac-Man. Like for the rest of the stuff in the game to work, you have to kind of shed that a little bit and approach it on a different level.
Yeah.
And the closest analog is like really like modern tabletop stuff. Like even the devs where they're like losers see stuff, winners never will. Like it's fail forward and get told a story and being okay with like your story being the one that didn't succeed at this thing.
And, if I was talking to somebody who was going into this and they were, feeling as saying, like anticipatory FOMO that like, oh, I don't like that there's a roll system because I'm not afraid I'm going to see anything. Something that is really important is like getting on board with Harry as a fuck up, at least at the start of this. And as you rebuild, you getting the, you building toward being more successful as you get your feet under you. I think that is having Harry be what he is, throughout this, but especially at the start, is a huge win for gameplay and, if not story, at least character integration, right?
Well, but even to meet it that way, you have to be in a mood to role play where you realize that you're playing Harry and not yourself.
Yeah.
Like when people feel bad about failing, I don't think they're thinking about Harry failing. They're thinking about them failing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and divorcing you from that, like getting you to dissociate in that way is really a key to this.
Yeah.
You know, I ended up seeing tons of myself in Harry, but I didn't feel like I don't even drink anymore. Like I don't, you know, don't do drugs. You know, or like I mean that's not true. I'll take a slow ball from time to time to go to sleep, but I don't do I don't do drugs. So it's not. I wasn't seeing myself in him in that way. Like I was playing a character who had this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it is a role playing game in a really direct way, and in a way that role playing games almost never are.
Yeah.
Very rare that you're playing a role in a game.
Can you define slow ball for people who might be concerned by hearing that?
That is a ZQuil and a weed gummy.
Gotcha. Okay.
For sleep.
Cool.
So I forgot. I couldn't remember if I had brought that up on the show or not.
I figured that's what it was. But no, because I think that you had spoken of it before. The converse of a slow ball, which is, you know, ultimately harmless unless you have some other condition. The converse of a slow ball is a speedball, which is heroin and coke. So
I don't do.
What I didn't want was somebody to think like, wait a minute, slow ball.
Gary's got really into coke.
Yeah, Gary's like
he doesn't
super
even
into
drink
heroin
anymore.
now.
He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, so I just wanted to define that term just in case.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, something makes it into like your general conversation, and you just drop it on air like it's nothing.
Yeah, I didn't want somebody to get worried for you, buddy.
No, please don't be worried about me.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is this you or me?
I think this is me.
Okay.
Eric via contact says, Disco Elysium is a rare and special thing. It's a game I find difficult to talk about since every attempt I make ends up sounding pretentious or hippy-dippy or a grotesque mixture of both. There's dozens upon dozens of games I love, but Disco Elysium is one of the very, very few that feels genuinely enriching. Once I finished it, I felt like I had truly done something nice for myself as a human being. There's obviously tons of incredible standout moments, but there's one little line of dialogue from Kim that stuck with me. Once you realize, to your horror, that the crashed motor carriage outside the fishing village is actually yours, Kim replies simply, "I'm sorry, Harry. I'm so sorry." It's an incredibly simple line, but something about it just knocked the wind out of me. It'd be so easy to make Kim an unfeeling, one-dimensional straight man to wacky old Harry, or to just have him roll his eyes at your irresponsibility. But instead they make him this beautiful, rich character that believably extends empathy at that moment, knowing that you feel mortified and that you deeply do not want to be this much of a goddamn mess.
That's such a good scene. Just sitting there and like passing the time as the ice melts is so good.
One of the things about, we talk about this game as a deeply like empathetic game and a game with lots of heart. It's not just what it has that in the grand philosophy. The characters have it for each other as well.
Yeah.
You know, like you see the sympathy in Kuno, like you see the sympathy in Titus. Kim sees the sympathy in you. Like the hostel manager cleans up your room after you get shot defending the hostel from fascists. Like the characters exhibit empathy for each other as well.
Yeah.
And that is like lends to that feeling quite a bit.
I think it's important too. Like that conversation can only happen on day 3, right? You would have had to have spent time with Kim. Like there was a chance for you to get to know each other and for you to understand how he operates, to where him delivering that could feel like it comes from a genuine place. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
God, Kim is such a good character. I know a lot of my analysis has been, man, this thing is really good in this game.
It's very hard not to be replaying it.
I know.
Now.
That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Ryan writes via contact, "Hey, guys. Disco Elysium is one of the most incredible games I have ever played. It's one of those experiences where I went in almost completely blind, and along the way I came to the realization, oh, this is made for me, which is something that happens so rarely. But when it does, I am completely enamored and cannot stop thinking about it. Almost every aspect of the game resonated with me. The art style, the writing, the music, the overall mood, setting, characters, dialogue, and of course, the revolutionary RPG systems. But the main thing was being able to play a protagonist that I could relate to on a level that I have never encountered in media before. I struggle with alcoholism and depression. seeing it portrayed the way that it is by Harry, while still extreme and fantastical in some cases, allowed me to bring myself further into the role-playing experience. And I really feel what he was going through, since I could relate so well. I strived to stay sober and ignore the temptations electrochemistry offered. I tried to get my shit together and become a better person than I was by listening to the myriad aspects of the brain that I thought would best help me deal with each situation. And of course, I wanted to do right by my sweet, sweet boy Kim. Making him proud was the most rewarding part of the game, and I couldn't even bear the thought of doing anything that would ruin the friendship we had accrued through the journey, despite the multitude of fuck-ups dealing with the case, and my proclivity to lean into the Inland Empire aspect. There's so much more I could say about why Disco Elysium is special to me. It's a game I think about all the time and has such a high standard for other narrative RPGs to reach. I am super excited for whatever else the developers have planned for the future, so until then, I'll throw on the soundtrack once in a while and nod along to Whirling in Rags.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really neat the way that this can appeal whether you directly relate or not.
Yes.
You know, those things. Like, I feel like this character is not going to relate to everybody. Like, there are conversations in the Slack, like people were turned off by this because they were like, yeah, I can't relate to this guy.
Yeah, or reminds me of somebody who in my own life who hurt me, you know?
Yeah. You know, but it is something where, like, you can relate to it on multiple facets, I think. Or, we could. Some people can relate to it on multiple facets.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Thank you for sharing that, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Stuart says via contact, I left Disco Elysium feeling contemplative.
There you go.
Is that right? We've been recording for a while. And melancholy. The echoes of a failed revolution and the terrifying, inevitable nothingness off in the distance really spoke to me about the current state of the world. I wanted to share this experience so much. I kind of ruined the ending for my partner. I watched her whole playthrough. It was funny and convoluted and differed so much from mine. But in the end, when she had a chance to speak with the Insulidian Phasmid, she couldn't pass the electrochemistry check. For me, it had been a 12 difficulty, but for her, it was a 20. The conversation with it had left me with so much emotional connection to Harry and to Kuno, who was with me at the time, that I tore open the game's files to mod her character to max stats, and still the game would not let her pass the check. We ended up watching the bit on YouTube, but it wasn't the same, and I deeply regret not letting the ending be whatever it was going to be for her and trying to impose my experience on it instead.
Yeah. Yeah, that sucks.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. You know, like you can get, even if you are going to get the majority of the same content, navigating your way through that conversation and responding to its questions, like, what do you think of me? Am I beautiful? Am I kind? Am I scary? Right.
Yeah.
Like making those choices, though it is, technically pretty low interactivity on the scale of things, is still very important to it being your experience of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up too much. You had your heart in the right place.
Yes. And also, I don't know how your input in watching and watching her made her fail that check too.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's what he was saying. I think he was saying that he tried to go in and he didn't just let the scene go as it was. He tried to go in and cheat.
Yeah.
Make sure she got it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
What does John say?
John says, I think for me, one of the most successful elements of Disco Elysium is how it portrays a reality that is chewy with easily missed detail, where the indiscriminate mind can be as involved in the intricacies of a board game or plumbing the obscure meandering thoughts of a racist, or indeed trying to deliver a criminal investigation against the backdrop of personal and economic ruin. It's all there to be found if we choose to play the role of a detective. It's an ode to the value of paying attention to the lives of the people around us and to the squabbling forces within our own bodies. There we go. A question for you two. What comes after this in terms of games with deep, dreamy, and dark writing at their core? Electrochemistry says, more please, and keep the focus on it being a game, not just a book. At any rate, Zaum, or Zaum, has a spotlight and a disco ball over them now.
I hope this has a huge influence in terms of adventure games, like in general. I don't expect adventure games that follow this to be as deep or as well written, but I really hope this bucks the trend of no mechanics, please. Adventure games. I really want this to cause a sea change in the genre, and we stop just saying, what if we have, there's just dialogue and you're just told a story. I really want this to be the beginning of the end of that.
Yes.
Not the end, but like the beginning of the end of its like prominence.
Yeah. Like there are things that kind of have a similar melancholy dreaminess to it. Like I've played like 3 episodes of Kentucky Route Zero, and that is an interesting, that is an interesting thing to go through. It is not as rigorous as this is in terms of being mechanical. Like that is kind of a poem that unfolds as you choose to unfold it. Right.
Yeah.
So like you can't really, I can't really make a comparison to this. I know that you, Gary, made some comparisons to like the Tides of Numenera game.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Which does that without the same kind of depth, but at its best,
right,
kind of evokes this, and it's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I came away from this is that like, and I'm not trying to say it's easy to do Kentucky Route Zero.
No.
Like it's not easy to write a really beautiful poem.
Right.
Or we'd be up to our fucking necks in poet laureates over here. I think it's really difficult, but I think that this is more difficult. I think this is trickier, but to me has more like, I haven't played Kentucky Route Zero yet. I want to, I'm not against it. It is, I wish I had played it before I played this.
Yeah.
Because knowing that it is barely interactive really puts a gray lining on that silver cloud for me.
Yeah.
Another point of comparison I always make, and this is a game I like, but like I think about Night in the Woods, which also has this melancholy tone, a lot of the same themes. And I liked everything about that except playing it. Like the act of playing it, I didn't actually care for that much. And that would have been fixed by having it be less of a just, here's a story you unfold at your own pace.
Yeah.
I really think that I don't even want to make a qualitative statement about whether that's good or not, because there are 1,000% people who prefer both of those works to this one. I think for my own personal taste, I am no longer really interested in that and much more interested in something that does something closer to this. Yeah.
And keep in mind, we're talking about like relatively mainstream games, even in the indie space, that we are aware of. There might be something, on itch that hits precisely this note. It just hasn't been brought to our attention.
Yeah. And I want it to be brought to my attention. Yeah. So if it's extant, please tell me.
Yeah. It can be short.
This is not me trying...
It's fine if it's short.
It's great if it's short.
Yeah.
This isn't me just putting this on a pedestal and saying nothing can match it. This is me saying that like, hey, I enjoyed this a lot more than I enjoyed some other experiences that are kind of similar. What else can I get that does this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose it's probably the kind of thing that people get from Undertale as well.
Yeah, I can see
like
that.
That mechanical mix with like I didn't like that game, but I know that a lot of people, it touched their heart.
Yeah.
A lot of way. I think if that were less online and a little less Tumblr-y, it might have touched my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked Undertale. I like that game quite a bit, actually. It's similar, but not exactly the same thing here. I think that, like that is mechanical in a different way. And the way that it is mechanical is less kind of mixed in with the story. As it is here.
And part of it is just writing and tone. Like if you took the writing and tone of this game and overlaid it over Undertale, I probably would have powered through the parts I didn't like to get to the parts I would have, instead of it all being, ooh, I'm small bean. The game.
I don't remember it being a lot like that, but different sensitivities.
Yeah. I'm just very sensitive to Tumblr speak right now.
Yeah, well, because Tumblr collapsed and it is flooded into
and
Twitter.
Now it's on Twitter.
It's in our space, and it fucking sucks.
It's in the water.
Yeah.
Now it's in the water.
Yeah. Let's see. What does John say?
Other John says, so when I heard the Whirling and Rags song, I immediately reminded me of Lorne's song Anvil with a trumpet accentuating the melody. And if you've seen that film clip, it kind of matches the game too. A feeling of existence disappearing, melancholic happiness, becoming something new, more. But I do want to talk about the Tribunal, because I put the game down for a day after that, and I had that much of an adverse reaction. In Disco Elysium, you generally go at your own pace, but once you trigger meeting Ruby, don't worry about anything Don't worry about finishing anything else. It's all over. The pace/choice is gone. I found this grating, even the opposite of what a Disco Elysium is about. This is different from if I had missed a red skill check, which are based on my character choices. I could handle missing out on content. I couldn't handle missing out on content because a moment wasn't signposted. It needed one of those goofy point of no return pop-ups because I've tried to replay this game since then, and I can't. It gave me that much of a visceral reaction. I read up on it, and nothing can really change the outcome, even if you arrested or killed the main suspect, which, should matter. I would have even been happy with a really bad outcome of you blaming the wrong person who gets slaughtered by the tribunal. That would have fit the theme. I did finish the game eventually, and thank goodness. I needed Harry standing in front of the boat, blasting Sad FM, and making sure the killer knows my location. That was the crazy fun stuff that makes me love Disco Elysium.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not trying to, experiences are different, everything. Mm-hmm. Kim just straight up told me, hey, if there's anything you want to do in town, you should do it now.
Yeah.
Before I went down in the basement. There's a distinct moment right after I left the little communist hut that he just said, hey, this is a point of no return.
Yeah.
So it's easy to miss that kind of thing. And maybe it was part of a dialogue branch. I don't remember the specifics, but it at the very least exists within the game.
Yeah. It can be argued whether or not it's at odds with what the game, established as important over the previous 30 hours or what have you. But I think that, once you reach that point, they valued adding a sense of momentum to what was happening here. I think it would take a lot away if you were able to wander off.
Yeah.
I think that it would lose the urgency. And specifically, when you get to the final day after you wake up, from being shot and you are, kind of doing the Hail Mary that Clausia allowed for you by setting up that yarn and, tracing the trajectory. I think that that feeling meandering, but also what else are we going to do on our way out because everything is settled. All of the key players have left. I think that is a very important thing to add for the urgency as well.
Yeah, it had to end somehow.
Yeah,
and they wanted to have control over the ending. I think this game does a remarkable job of being feeling like a tabletop game with an open-ended GM. But ultimately, it is a computer with binary choices, so it had to, if it wanted to have an authored ending, even with all of the play space available within that ending, it had to happen at some point.
Yeah.
I can understand being frustrated if you miss this is the point of no return.
Yes. Yeah.
Message.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
close us out.
Yeah. Lastly, here we have Elliot, who writes in via contact saying, I have no words for this monumental epic because I am not one of the writers for Disco Elysium who have an unmatched ability to craft and cultivate a rich and viscous world full of tragedy, hope, and everything in between. I love that word choice, viscous. Personally, I thought Disco Elysium is a wonderful story through the lens of historical materialism. However, beyond that, I'm still not entirely sure what this is all meant to be. I just know that I left the experience feeling deeply moved, where I'm in a time of my life where some of it is all just a bit too relevant for me. The writers are top of their game when they can make an ultra liberal like Joyce one of my personal favorites. One of the many characters in this world full of regret, hypocrisy, sincerity, and an instinct to survive. Whether it was navigating the streets of Revachol, exploring the homosexual underground, or turning myself into a very, very smart boy with something like a university degree in truth, this game never ceased to amaze me. Disco Elysium is truly a masterpiece that has put the RPG world on notice. Probably the best game that I played this year, and that's coming from a Half-Life fanboy who was sated 13 years later by Half-Life Alex. If there is one thing that we can't take away from this game, it would be the wisdom from the emotional and melancholic encounter with the Enceladian Phasmid. Do it for the working class.
Do it for the working class.
Love it.
Love that working class.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the best class.
Oh, yeah. If I had to choose.
Yeah, what else are you going to choose?
Well, look at me, I'm PMC. I might technically qualify as PMC, but I don't know.
I'd love to choose the ruling class.
Yeah,
I'd love to choose the landed gentry.
I love to side with the winners. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's going to do that? Yeah. But have you never read a story? Are you just you've like literally, have you talked to another person? Jesus Christ.
Hi, I'm not from New York or Texas, but I love the Yankees and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing? What what kind of choice are you making with your life? Come on.
Yeah. Working class. Thanks, everybody. We're not going to do the whole outro again because we already did.
Yeah.
We really appreciate everybody coming out in force.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see you next week.
Yeah.
Umbasa.
Umbasa.